Hey now, we are getting over, and I am the Silver King, Adam Silverstein, here to lead you through these hard times. Dada, with the latest WWE edition of your favorite professional wrestling podcast. That's right, Getting Over is back once again, and we are less than 3 weeks away from WWE WrestleMania 41. WWE has now completed its 3-week European sojourn and will be returning to the United States. But before they left, they put on a couple of banger shows in the O2 Arena in London, England. Vintage Chris Vanini will be along for the ride momentarily, but the Silver King off the top of this show needs to remind you that the Getting Over Wrestling podcast
is all about Defy.
So please, folks,
stop being marks for yourselves and go back to being a mark for me.
Go back to being marks for the Silver King and for Vintage. Head over to Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Leave a 5-star rating on Apple. Take a little extra time. Leave a 5-star written review. If you do, we will read it live right here on the show. And checking our numbers right before we went to air, we are officially at 499 5-star reviews. Our latest came from Ron Rapture. I need pyro when I walk into work, 5 stars. You guys have great takes. I always explain wrestling to my friends as a male soap opera. If Cena wins the title, it's not a belt, brother. Belts hold up your pants. If he does not take a picture of the title in a refrigerator, we are not telling the whole story that is coming. Keep up the great work. I enjoy listening to you guys. Ron, we greatly appreciate that 5-star review. It looks like the numbers caught up with the actual reviews, as I mentioned a couple weeks ago, because that's the only one for us to read today. But we are one away from 500. We want to hit that number before WrestleMania 41. Be our 500th 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. Please go ahead and do that. We would greatly appreciate it. Don't forget to subscribe to us on YouTube at Getting Overcast. Not only do you get full audio episodes, you get video clips from old interviews and full-length video interviews from brand new ones in 2025. We already have an hour-long conversation with NXT play-by-play man Vic Joseph. And spoiler alert, Getting Over will have numerous interviews. WrestleMania 41 week, including one with a friend of the show, at least let's say an old-time friend of the show here on the Getting Over Wrestling podcast, who will be making their return for the first time in a couple years. Keep your ear holes open for that performance-enhancing audio coming your way in a couple weeks. Also, don't forget, by the way, to follow us on social media at Getting Overcast on Twitter, at Getting Over on Blue Sky. Episode drops, news, analysis, highlights, all of that good stuff. You can also send in questions and comments for the show. We will do our best to get them on the air. And you know we're going to have a ton of special material coming your way with WrestleMania 41 approaching. With all of that said, time to welcome in Vintage Chris Vanini for today's show. Chris, we have as loaded an episode of this program as we ever have before, primarily because WWE decided to take its foot off the brake and jam on the gas pedal on the road to WrestleMania 41.
Yes, a lot of stuff happened. People might remember last week, we were very critical of pretty much everything going on. That is not likely to be the case on this episode.
I would agree with that.
And a mixed weekend outside of wrestling. We nearly had what would have been an incredible moment for this podcast.
It would have been.
Your Florida Gators won in the Elite Eight to advance to the Final Four.
They did.
And they would play the winner of Auburn versus my Michigan State Spartans. Unfortunately, Auburn won the game. We nearly had both of our alma maters matching up in the Final Four.
Yeah.
Right before WrestleMania. We were going to try to do some fun things, perhaps another bet here or there. But unfortunately, my Spartans couldn't get it done. So best of luck to your Gators.
It honestly would have been incredible. And I would have actually considered like a 20-minute bonus podcast, just Florida, Michigan State. Let's talk about it. If anyone cares, they can listen. If they don't have to, right? I think it would have been a lot of fun. I was disappointed, not for the same reason you were. Obviously, it's your alma mater, and you wanted Michigan State in there because you wanted them to potentially win a national championship. I wanted Michigan State in there because I wanted revenge on the 2000 national championship. And I believe also, I want to say the 2003 Elite Eight or something. Like we played you guys twice in a short period of time. And Michigan State beat us both times, and I've wanted revenge on Tom Izzo ever since. We haven't had the opportunity to get it, and I thought it would come this year. I really didn't have any doubts, no offense to the Spartans, but if that matchup did happen, I saw it as an easier road for the Gators. We're just so talented, so long. Our guard play is so high quality.
Sure.
I figured it would be nice to get revenge and also an easier path. But Auburn is pretty damn good. So
Auburn is very good. Also, it's funny, in the early 2000, like the first couple of months of 2000, Michigan State beat Florida in the Citrus Bowl and the basketball national championship in the span of like a couple of months. So
yes,
no Big Ten team has won a national championship since then.
That's
and it
correct.
won't happen this year. Again, good luck to your Gators.
25 consecutive years without a Big Ten national champion in basketball, and no SEC team has won a national championship in basketball other than, I believe, Kentucky since Florida in 2007. So very interesting setup here. Obviously, huge Gators fan. Yours truly, of course, is. And I just want to shout out, even though he's not listening and no one listening would even know him and personally or whatever, shout out to Walter Clayton Jr. for putting on a show. Anyone who watched the Elite Eight knows exactly what I'm talking about.
When you write his name, Walter Clayton Jr., do you capitalize the Walter? Like Walter? How he used to be before he was
I should. You know what? He deserves it. I absolutely should capitalize that name. That's true.
People chanting Walter in the crowd.
Oh my God. What a fucking dude. Sorry. What a guy. That play at the end of the Elite Eight was absolutely incredible. Speaking of the Elite Eight and really this entire weekend, Chris, I know we've had this long-term conversation about Star Wars here. I mean, we haven't actually discussed it because I don't watch it, but that's really been what it's about, how you try to press it on me. I've never seen it before. I'll break the fourth wall a little bit. I told you this over the weekend, and I felt like I needed to then say it on the show. I saw that trailer for the new season of Andor, and dude, it looks so sick that before and after the Elite Eight games this weekend on Saturday and Sunday, I hunkered down, I bit the bullet. I not only binge watched season 1, I actually watched, I hate to say this, Star Wars Episode 4, the first movie. And I texted you about it. I had no idea it was this good.
That's right, man. It's happening. Andor season 2 looks great. What was your favorite part of A New Hope?
So I don't know if it's the same for everyone, but for me, it was basically when Han Solo did the run-in at the end and he saved Luke, because I wasn't expecting that at all.
Yeah, he pulled an Undertaker to save Cody at the end. Great moment. Great moment. So next up, when are you watching Empire?
Is that the second movie?
Yes.
Dude, I'm not seeing that shit, and I didn't see this shit either. April Fools.
Come on, Oos. It's a joke, right? It's a joke, Oos. You ribbing me?
First ever episode of the Getting Over Wrestling podcast that happened to fall on April Fool's Day. We had to do it to you. Folks, we got a ton of show left. We're talking Raw, SmackDown, John Cena, Cody Rhodes, Roman Reigns, CM Punk, Seth Rollins, Io Sky, Rhea Ripley, Bianca Belair. I can go on and on. We have the main event, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Both of those are coming up.
But I'm afraid I've got some news.
For the first time ever, WWE is inducting a single match into the WWE Hall of Fame as what it's calling an immortal moment. The first entry, Steve Austin versus Bret Hart, WrestleMania 13, the Bloodstone match that basically established Austin's entire career. Now, both men are going to be in attendance for the induction. And look, some of you may argue that this shouldn't be the first inductee for this category, but many fans do consider this their greatest match of all time. I'm not sure there's an argument that it's one of the most important WWE matches ever and one of the best WrestleMania matches of all time. So while this may not be the number one choice for you as a match or moment, if you're doing it during this WrestleMania and you're doing it in Las Vegas, using a Stone Cold match makes a ton of sense. Beyond that, WWE adding this immortal moment category, it is immensely smart. It opens up a whole slew of new opportunities to bring back legends, give them honorifics. That's only going to enhance the Hall of Fame shows themselves. And look, the Hall of Fame, it's not complete by any means, but it has reached a point of somewhat diminishing returns where there's only so many major stars that can headline a class. And if you're not going to have class headliners, the ability to bring back, The Undertaker or Bret Hart, Shawn Michaels, whomever, and honor them in ways like this. Mick Foley, let's say for the Hell in a Cell match with The Undertaker, it just makes a ton of sense to do this.
I mean, yeah, my first reaction was, oh, okay, they realize that they are running out of people to put in the Hall of Fame.
Mm-hmm.
And so they have to come up with something else, which is fine. I find it extremely corny and weird.
Really?
But having you don't put games into the sports hall of Fame.
So
like,
that's true, but the UFC does put fights into its Hall of Fame.
Oh, do they?
So this is very much in line with that. Now, just because they do it doesn't make it right, okay? But at the same time, they honor iconic fights, and that's why WWE is doing this. Surely they got the idea from that.
Oh, okay. I did not know that was a thing.
No, but your point is correct. The NFL isn't putting games in the Pro Football Hall of Fame.
Yeah. I mean, I still think it's my main takeaway remains that you're running out of things to do, and okay, sure, fine. And now it officially puts Austin in Vegas for a WWE event. He said he was going to be there. He lives in Nevada, but now he is doing a WWE thing, and maybe not. He shows up
right
at actual WrestleMania. If you were going to do a match, like, you have to do Hulk Hogan, Andre the Giant. Like, that has to be your first one, but you can't do it right now because everybody's booing Hulk Hogan out of the building.
You can't do it ever. That's not going to change. It's just not.
Probably is not going to change. Yeah. So it is a little bit weird. All in all, like, it's fine. If you're going to pick a match, that's fine. Like, both guys are still alive. You can tell a good story, whatever. Like, I get it. I'm nitpicking. I kind of think it's weird, but you were going to run out of headliners pretty soon, and you're going to have to come up with some other stuff. So I get it.
That's the thing. It's like Batista's waiting out there, but who else is truly waiting? And
like the Hardy Boys, Jeff Hardy,
right? Like that'll happen. Are they going to headline a class? Like John Cena certainly will, and
Edge.
Yeah, and there's other stars currently who will, like Roman Reigns and Seth Rollins, and these guys, but they're not retired yet. CM Punk's not retired
Jericho.
yet. And you're not going to put people in when they're active. Rey Mysterio was a very unique case, right? So, and you're mentioning a couple people in AEW, which is interesting because Omar Gonzalez at WWE AEW 915 on Twitter, he actually wrote in a question about that. He said, I get why WWE is doing this. Sadly, a lot of deserving matches won't get nominated because of involvement in AEW with contracted talent, so I'm conflicted about it, he said. It doesn't concern me at all, Chris. Like, who is over in AEW that would be deserving of an immortal moment? Again, we're talking about the best of the best, and likely one of them per year. You have Edge for TLC, Sasha Banks for the Bayley match at NXT TakeOver Brooklyn, probably main eventing WrestleMania against Bianca Belair. Chris Jericho.
That's low on the list, but yes.
Yeah, I'm just saying, Chris Jericho, maybe something. Nothing's coming to mind immediately.
In terms of matches, it's when he beat Austin and Rock in the same night to should become the undisputed. But that's not not the greatest matches, and
it's not an immortal moment either. I mean, he did it, and it's notable, but I don't think it's immortal.
I don't think that. In terms of the AEW talent, I don't think that's an issue for matches. I think you're really going to have to wait a while, maybe, before you can put Edge and Jericho and maybe some of the others in, because
they're headliners. Like that's the thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Isn't
it a whole thing right now that AEW is like not letting Sting come for or something?
So no, that's not
because
known.
WWE did something.
Yeah, so that's not known. So the situation as it stands, according to reports, is that Lex Luger asked for Sting to induct him. Either Sting or Sting and Diamond Dallas Page. I'm not totally sure. And apparently WWE has made overtures to AEW to allow Sting to do it. Now, whether that happens or not, we don't know. It hasn't been said. Them preventing him is not something that is a news item out there. So it's possible they are. It's also possible they're not. It's also possible that, Luger was like, I would love this, but if it doesn't happen, I would understand. It's also possible that DDP inducts him and Sting is there, but he's just in the crowd. So there's a lot of different ways this can go. But no, right now, AEW has not done anything wrong. WWE has not done anything wrong. But the reported ask out there is for Sting to either induct Luger solo or be one of two people who induct him into the Hall of Fame.
And the other report being that WWE wouldn't let somebody go to Sting's farewell match. Was it Arn Anderson?
No, it wasn't Arn Anderson. It was, I forget who the person was, but it wasn't that they couldn't go. They were there. They just didn't want them on camera, so they were able to watch from the crowd. They just couldn't be on screen.
Gotcha.
So that's the situation. And, it's different strokes for WWE and AEW. It always has been. I don't think Tony Khan's under any obligation to let Sting appear on screen, but Tony is someone who also purports himself to honor the old days and WCW and all these wrestlers. It was guys that he loved. So would you really, if you're him and that's how you feel, would you prevent Sting from doing that because of an issue you have with WWE? It's tough to say. It's a very difficult decision for him to make, to be fair.
And he did let Billy Gunn go over there for the DX Hall of Fame one, and Triple H called it a pissant company. So
that was separate, I think, when Gunn wasn't there that he said that. Maybe I'm wrong. Oh, no, it was the same segment. You're right. Yeah, of course, it was the same segment.
So,
yeah.
A little bit of pettiness across the board. I wish everybody could get along for the sake of the wrestlers.
For stuff like this, there should be none of that. Like, if someone's being honored and you want, that someone featured, like to induct them into a Hall of Fame, you should be able to do that. But at the same time, like for Sting's last match, I didn't disagree with WWE saying whomever it was that you can't be on TV because it's just a match. Like, why would that person need to be on television? You know what I mean? If AEW had its own Hall of Fame and it was inducting Sting into the Hall of Fame and they wanted DDP, let's say, to induct him and he's under Legends contract to WWE and they still didn't let him go over, then I'd have a problem with it. But to be someone involved in and around a match, to me, is a different kind of situation. I don't think anyone's in the wrong right now. We'll see what happens. We got, 3 weeks for that to work itself out. Let's move on, though. In a confusing move, Chris, WWE announced on Friday that the official theme of WrestleMania 41 is, yes, Chris, gonna be the frickin' weekend. This time it's Timeless, featuring Playboy Cardi. And at this point, the only way this makes any sense to me is if WWE signed like a 10-year deal with him or something like that. Because this is 6 years in a row. Blinding Lights, Save Your Tears, Sacrifice, Less Than Zero, Gasoline, and now Timeless. And it's another WrestleMania theme when you listen to it that's crazy low tempo and really boring to hear as the background for these graphics. I loathed when Pitbull's Green Light was the theme for WrestleMania 33, but at least it had a beat to it and it got you excited when you heard it. But here's why it's confusing. Because Monday Night on Raw, all the bumpers for WrestleMania were still Fiend by Travis Scott. And they even took time out of the show with a lower third graphic, and Pat McAfee spoke to it to say that Fiend was the official theme of WrestleMania. So what is going on? Are there two official themes? Does one represent Raw? The other is SmackDown? I don't get this at all.
Among the many things around WrestleMania, this is like the least important.
But
it was weird and a little confusing. I could have sworn that they had announced two different themes for the Rumble, but all I can find is that they did the Charlie XCX song. So maybe not. Everybody's got an official everything, and I don't think anybody's going to really notice or care. Both of the songs are just whatever to me. It's fine music, as everybody knows. It's not the kind of music I would pick.
Okay, sure, but forget about that. I'm just talking about the confusion of this all. Like,
it is.
It doesn't make any sense. What are we doing here?
Weird.
It's so weird.
It's weird.
It's so strange. We discussed on Thursday's show that the now named Mark Nash, a former top-ranked boxing announcer, Las Vegas sports in-arena host, he's the new ring announcer for SmackDown in place of Lillian Garcia. He debuted Friday night. Thought he was rather solid in terms of doing the job, getting everything right. But Chris, his voice, I don't know if you paid attention, it's going to take some getting used to. The dude sounds like a rock and roll singer, which is probably why he made a great in-arena host. But the lack of bass and baritone quality compared to like Mike Rome and other men who have done this in the past, like I said, it's just going to take some getting used to because it sounds odd. It almost sounds like Lillian Garcia put through a modulator or something like that. It's not off-putting. It's just different.
I don't know. He seemed fine to me. It felt like Mike Rome light in the same way that Alicia Taylor sounds like Samantha Irvin light. And that's not meant to be disrespectful. I just think, those are two of the best. They sound very similar, but just not quite them. Not that they would, because they're different people. My initial reactions on Mark Nash were, he's fine.
I don't want this to sound like I'm being critical. He did a great job. He did everything he was supposed to do. I'm just saying his voice is going to take some getting used to compared to, Samantha Irvin and Alicia Taylor and Lillian Garcia and Mike Rome, who I got so used to hearing.
He sounds like Mike Rome when he's starting, And then as it continues, you're like, it feels comfortable because it sounds like, oh, that's Mike Rome. But then it changes.
It never drops. His voice never drops.
Wait a minute.
Is the thing.
Wait a minute.
Yeah.
That's not Mike Rome. So that's what I mean by it's like them, but it's not quite them, because there are a lot of moments where they sound the same and then a couple where they don't.
This is coming from someone, by the way, who wishes he had a far deeper voice than he actually does. I promise you. So again, not being critical, just noticing. That's all. I got into a bit of a wormhole. I just wanted to mention this, catching up on the WWE LFG episodes that I missed. I have 2 streaming services of TV channels. Neither of them has A&E, which used to be like standard back in the day. So I've been reliant on A&E to send me episodes to watch, and I wanted to thank them publicly for doing so. I am legitimately loving this show. It's typical reality TV in that some of it's contrived and ridiculous, but it's actually a really easy, entertaining watch. And what actually makes it great is the talent on the show, because some of them, you watch them and you're like, these are legitimately going to be major stars. My favorite right now is Lee Laurel. For those who watch, you know who I'm talking about. Legit star power, a chance to become something very special if she buys all the way in. This doesn't make any sense, but it might after I say it. She's kind of like a mix between Bianca Belair and Austin Theory, where you see the star power and you see the athleticism, and you know they can be special if they put it all together. So, big Leah Laurel fan, big WWE LFG fan. Few episodes left. I think I'm through 6. I think they're up to 7 or 8 right now, and I don't know how many episodes the whole season is. But perhaps we'll talk about it by the time it's all over. Chris, have you seen this at all?
I have not. All the clips look good. I just, like you, I don't have A&E, and we're in the middle of the NCAA tournament. I've just kind of been swamped doing that stuff. But everything I've heard is that it seems pretty good.
That's what I actually binge watched before the Elite 8, by the way. I watched like 3 episodes on Saturday and 3 episodes on Sunday. That's why it played in so well to our April Fool's prank on y'all. And lastly, Raw this week went 2 hours and 33 minutes, so we have no complaints about runtime. So we're putting that to bed. That was clearly a European decision for WWE. And there were a lot of European decisions made by WWE this week, all of them in London. And we're going to finally get to them, as we always do, by sliding into the main event.
This is the main event.
I believe last week we said it was the most loaded main event in Getting Over history. This one is going to blow last week's main event out of the damn water. Chris, let's not waste any more time. We're going to get right to it. It's a 2-part main event that is probably broken up into, 27 parts. Cody Rhodes opened SmackDown, getting serenaded through the entire first verse of Kingdom before Cena sucks chants dominated some extremely faint "Let's Go Cena" chants. The dude couldn't even speak because they just sang and sang. They also did the Cody Rhodes chant after that. It was a wild scene, man. Then Randy Orton came out, and it just continued. To completely divert from analysis of this segment, I had 2 thoughts, Chris, when Orton came out. First, it is hysterical how he never wears street clothes. He's always in full gear. And 2, a Rhodes Orton, John Cena, Kevin Owens match would be incredible, given the history of all 4 guys. And you could actually run that at Backlash as a main event because that show is in St. Louis. I digress. But again,
two thoughts on that real quick. I still think one of the biggest matches in Raw history was the Raw before the go home to WrestleMania 18, when they had The Rock and Stone Cold team up against the NWO, which is crazy to think back on. But that was it was in Detroit, I remember, because Hulk Hogan got a big cheer from the Detroit fans. You're right. I was thinking right then and there, oh, Cody and Orton versus KO and Cena as your go home. Like, that's what it would have been.
Absolutely, back in the day.
Yes. But now you have to save everything for a pay-per-view and stretch it out or whatever. So that's that.
That would be the main event of Raw, the final Raw for WrestleMania, the go home for WrestleMania back in the day.
Yeah. If it was like 2002.
Yeah, 100%. No question.
Second thought, and this will be the only time I talk about it, and waited till the end of the European tour. The chanting, I like it. It's a bit too much.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't even put it on the crowd. I put it on the wrestlers for stopping and letting it go. I'm done with the Cody Rhodes. I heard that so many times over the last.
By the way, you didn't just hear that. You heard Roman Reigns, and then you heard Io Sky as well.
Yeah, it's like, okay, like, but it's always them stopping to let the crowd keep going. And I'm like, can we just get to the show here? It'd be even a shorter runtime if we didn't. But by the fourth week, I'm like, all right, we can stop stopping for the crowd to chant. This isn't a new thing anymore.
There were multiple superstars, including John Cena this week, who successfully overrode the chants, and they just powered through them and they stopped. Everyone else reminded me of that line from Bob Odenkirk on The Office where he's like, I think they indulged themselves a bit too much when he's talking about Curb Your Enthusiasm. That's what this reminded me of. It's like they keep stopping and indulging the crowd. At some point, you need to just say, I love you guys. Thank you so much. I got some business to take care of right now. And then go back to what you were doing.
But I will say, I hope that the energy keeps up in America.
Absolutely.
Like the energy was great. Just the chanting. Again, I'm not putting that on the crowd. I'm putting that on the wrestlers for stopping instead of.
No, you're right. And at this point, I feel like, look, just give London WrestleMania and let's get this over with. Like, give them what they want. Let me quote Batista.
Give me what I want. Give me what I want.
Give them what they want, and then maybe next time they come back after that, the singing will tone down even 25%. Anyway, getting back to this actual segment of television. Randy put Cody over for, I quote, having big ass balls and leaving WWE, which changed the entire industry and gained him everyone's respect. Orton continued expressing pride in him for coming back to WWE, doing Hell in a Cell with a torn pectoral, finishing his story, lighting the business on fire. He was also confident they would both kick asses of their opponents at WrestleMania, but he reminded, once that's all over, he wants number 15 on the other side. Out came Drew McIntyre, calling them Nepo babies, saying Orton has done zip zero, stingy with De Niro, since returning, whereas he was right as usual about John Cena. He blamed Damian Priest for him not being in that main event and said Orton looks great, but his body is still clearly broken. Quick strike by Cody, Drew escaped, segment over. There wasn't really that much to analyze here because it was really just a way to set up a main event TV match and get 3 UK fan favorites out for a really hot start to SmackDown. But there was something fresh and entertaining about this trio being featured together. Orton successfully built up Rhodes. McIntyre reminded that he belongs in this type of main event scene, not the upper mid card where he's being stuck for Mania. And 2 potential feuds were developed should Cody ultimately retain or win back the title at some point down the line. Again, was it that notable for WrestleMania? Not really, but it was solid across the board, and they fully energized an awesome crowd in London.
Yeah, you're right about it being fresh, because we'd only gotten Cody and Cena essentially for the last bit. So it was like different. And they're talking about something post-Mania. Like they're talking about, Cody, when you retain the title, here's what I want to do. So that's why it all felt fresh and different. I don't know if I'd say it tipped the hand to which way the main event's going to go. I think it's still too early to know that. But the promo itself was nothing. It was just Randy kind of recounting Cody's history for anybody who, for some reason, doesn't know it. McIntyre still can't believe they didn't have him in Glasgow, Scotland, for Raw last week. But he made a good point. He's like, I was right about John Cena. And I was like, you know what? You were. So setting up Orton McIntyre, I was like, whoa. I was like, this is like pay-per-view main event type of match. And we're just going to get this on a SmackDown. Huh? That's interesting and exciting.
You know what else that is?
Oh, we got 2 big meaty men bumping me tonight.
I mean, that's a meaty freaking match, especially the way Orton is built these days. It's absolutely crazy. Let's just go talk about that match. Orton McIntyre. Orton countered back into his own backdrop twice on the announce table, went on his signature run of offense later after McIntyre dominated the middle portion of the match. Owens appeared during the RKO setup that distracted Orton. It allowed McIntyre to catch him blind with a Claymore for the 1-2-3. Owens subsequently attacked. Orton avoided a pile driver on the announce table. He went for the punt kick, but KO hopped over the barricade, ran out of the arena, and avoided it. I'll tell you this. That loss to Jimmy Uso a month ago makes less and less sense with each passing week, given how strong Drew has been booked every week since. I'm glad McIntyre got the win, obviously. Credit to Orton for doing the job in this manner, relatively clean. And by the way, this is the kind of match involving main eventers that WWE needs to give fans more regularly on TV. This only usually happens when there's a title match that they want to put in the main event, like you saw on Raw Monday night. But when you book something like this, even when you just do it in the opening segment and it winds up being the main event, it actively improves the show. It gives you a reason to stick around, and it puts big name performers in an important match. And you saw how easy it was for the fans to become interested in this match after just one segment. This was really successful, even if it didn't actually mean that much.
No, and you can have your veteran stars lose. Randy Orton loses. He's fine. He's Randy freaking Orton, man.
Exactly.
Like and he loses outside of the storyline. So like basically outside the storyline. So like the Kevin Owens, it's not like, oh, Kevin Owens got one up on him essentially or anything. That's just like, no, this is just guys having a match. Drew McIntyre gets a huge win. And you're like, whoa, it's a good win for Drew McIntyre. Yeah. Because my thought coming in was, we're going to get some KO interference, DQ, throw it out, and blah, 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 keep everybody safe. Because that's how WWE so often does it and did forever under Vince. And honestly, the first long period of the Triple H era, they weren't doing that. Guys can lose, and it's okay.
Yes.
Like you got to, the last like 6 months, there have been such a DQ feel to so many things. Like they kind of gone back to the old ways. Let people win and lose matches. It's okay. No one's hurt by a loss. Randy Orton is not hurt by a loss.
Yeah. It either would have been that or Randy Orton like hanging over the top rope, yelling at Owens, and McIntyre rolling him up and getting the 1, 2, 3. He hit a finisher, beat him 1, 2, 3 in the middle of the ring.
Yeah.
Boom. That's all you need.
The only thing you got out of that was, oh, Drew McIntyre is like serious business right now.
Yeah.
That's it. That's exactly what, that's what a win, that's what a clean win does.
Exactly right. I mean, it wasn't clean because there was distraction, but it was cleaner than it otherwise would have been, at least in recent history and certainly in the past. So McIntyre celebrated this victory backstage with some Scottish musician, totally feeling himself, given all of his recent success. He shit on Priest for not even bothering to show up to the show, only to open a door with Priest waiting on the other side. Priest rammed his head into a BMW convertible. When the driver of the car complained, Priest put him through a table. It was such a classic wrestling spot with an extra, like when Shawn Michaels superkicked Stan, who we all now know as Shawn Spears. I absolutely love that from Priest. It ended with South of Heaven into the car windshield and McIntyre immediately grabbing his left eye. Priest then screamed at him, asking if there were any more jokes, and he said, "Rest in peace, jackass." He was calling back to McIntyre, insulting him as a Temu Undertaker. Ahead of the next segment, CM Punk walked past. He looked over at them, laughed, shook his head, and then made his way to the ring. I want to talk about the last part first. Punk was simply incredible. That was a fourth wall breaking moment at the end because of the McIntyre feud itself and the whole Real Glass Crimea River issue with Jungle Boy in AEW. I mean, they literally had him enter a segment involving a broken car windshield in London. Consider the through line. AEW does that spot at Wembley Stadium. Punk winds up getting fired. Now he's returned to London with WWE. WWE does the spot. He walks by, and minutes later on the same show, he learns that he's getting one of the biggest moments of his entire career. You got to give credit where it's due sometimes. That is outstanding.
Oh, yes! I love that!
Yeah, that was all really great, really good and intense. Exactly what you want from Priest McIntyre, considering McIntyre's mostly dismissing Priest. Also, photos going around this weekend of Drew McIntyre wearing an eye patch.
Yeah, I can speak to that. So McIntyre said on social media he got real glass in his eye from the spot. And it's clear something did go in his eye, whether it's glass or not. It doesn't actually matter. He wore the eye patch, like you said. He was doing some type of promotion on social media. What interested me is that Joe Tessitore was really quick to confirm that glass went in his eye or something, or that glass is dangerous immediately after the segment was over. That led me to believe it was a planned part of the story. If not, hopefully Drew's okay, because as anyone knows, anything in the eye is not a joke. And let's be clear about this, okay? That danger is precisely why Punk told Jungle Boy that this was a dumb spot, because real glass is dangerous. So yeah, tell him when he's telling lies. But when it comes to this feud, I didn't really speak to that. WWE, they continue to do an extremely solid job making something out of relatively nothing when it comes to Priest and McIntyre. There's obviously a legitimate storyline between them. I'm not ignoring that. But it still kind of remains to me like a major Raw main event and not a WrestleMania match. The way to get this into being Mania match worthy is a stipulation. I mentioned this last week. And given the car spot here, Chris, I'm starting to believe Falls Count Anywhere might actually be on the table. That would be great.
Oh, I thought you were going to say a Hearst match. We were going to put him in a car.
Could do an ambulance match, possibly.
Yeah. I agree. I think you need a stipulation because this has been properly intense.
Yeah.
Like the heat is there. As much as Drew McIntyre kind of poo-poos the idea of it, like I think we said this last week or before, I'm into this. Like I actually am into it. And I didn't think I would be when it started.
I think you said last week your level of interest went up to a 7, and I think I said mine was at a 6. Where does it stand now after this?
Yeah, probably like, it's still a high 7, 8 kind of right now.
Yeah, I think I'm at a 7. Like they're incrementally bringing me up to caring about this match when there's really no reason that I actually should. But the booking of this has been as good as anything else up until, let's say, this week on the road to WrestleMania. Let's shift over to Raw. John Cena opened the show Monday night, again drawing immense heat. But Rhodes in what may have been, Chris, the worst suit I have seen this guy wear since returning to WWE. Twice cut him off before he could even speak. We need to have a conversation about this suit because I don't know that we can proceed with the show before doing this. It was a thick bronze pinstripe on a navy suit with an orange tie and cherry wood leather shoes. He looked like those Green Bay Packer alternates that they wear. Who the hell picked this out?
This right here is bullshit.
He looked awful.
The suit goes together. Like he just looks like the Joker is the problem. He looks like some kind of version of the Batman villain. The shoes,
maybe Two-Face, if anything, from a suit standpoint.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, Two-Face suit. Yeah, it's more like a Two-Face suit.
Yeah.
You're right. That's exactly what it is. But the shoes did not fit at all.
No.
And they really jump out. Like, why are you not just wearing normal black dress shoes here? It's the combination of all of it.
Brown shoes with a navy suit is fine, but not when you have a thick bronze pinstripe. And then he was wearing an orange tie. Either that or the light shone on it weird. Cody is a sharp dresser. He's worn suits that I've actively said on social media I want to own. And the suit shop that makes this stuff actually DM'd us at Getting Overcast on Twitter. And he's like, hey, we make this. I'm so glad you like it. I was like, cool, can I get one? They're like, no, we don't have that fabric anymore. I was like, well, thanks a lot. But shout out to them because most of the suits they make are gorgeous. And Cody looks great in them. This was disgusting.
Not good. But if they want to sponsor the show, we might say better things.
We'll take sponsorships anytime you guys want. So let's get to the actual segment. Cena showed disgust at the crowd for singing for Cody, who pulled the B-Rabbit. I know everything you're about to say against me. He referenced Stardust, his lisp, the neck tattoo, getting booed in a company he created. I did not expect him to go there. Cody said Cena had been lying to the audience. He did care about them. And he asked, really, why did you turn? He didn't say those words exactly, but that's what he asked. The fans chanted, you sold out. Which, fans,
thank you.
Cena said Cody's been protected his whole career, so he won't cook him on the mic. He'll bury him, just like he's buried everyone else. Great line, quote, I don't bury talent. I am talent. I bury mediocrity. And it was wild for Cena to say that in front of Wade Barrett, who was sitting right there on commentary. Cena said Rhodes has manipulated his way to the top. His ego outweighs his ability, and all Cody's done is steal the spot and stage that Cena created. It's disgusting to see Cody doing this while being too perfect, too polished, too rehearsed, too reliant on the music, the entrance, and the fans, whereas Cena had no choice but to succeed in silence. Cena said Rhodes is too afraid to show his true self. Instead, he's this generic mix of every popular superstar. All Cody has ever shown him is that someone mediocre wearing the WWE Championship is enough to trick the fans. He's a paint-by-numbers, sociopathic Nepo baby who is so into himself, he had his wrestling gimmick tattooed in a place that everyone could see it. To quote Mike Breen, bang. Cena got loud cheers and chants because, yeah, he did cook him. Cody said he might be chosen, but it's the people who chose him. Not one guy in an office who isn't there anymore who they can't talk about. Damn. Cody said Cena
that was my line of the segment right there, that line.
He said Cena was the company creation, not him. He honors his father, and he's not scared of Cena on the mic because he had more dick in the promo than he did in his shorts. I'm not even sure what that means in this context. Dick in the promo.
I don't even know what that means.
No one knows what it means, but it's provocative.
No, it's not. It
Gets the people going.
PG, brother.
Cody said Cena's entire run made fans disenfranchised, and he left for Hollywood with WWE worse than when he found it. There's two of them standing in the ring. Between them, Cena is the one who sold out to The Rock. Fans immediately jumped right back on Cody's side. Rhodes admitted Cena is still his hero, but he's also a piece of shit, which got chance. Cena said his brain is filled with feces, not facts, and he's worked 100 times harder, yet never been protected from an audience or a superstar taking their best shot at him. Cena said he's never had a worthy challenger, so that's why he left, because all he was doing was making the garbage that WWE gave him great. Whereas Cody had to leave because at his best, he couldn't wipe Cena's ass. Cena said he makes empires for billionaires, whereas Cody just steals money from the billionaires' kids. My heavens. Cena dropped the mic, but Cody retorted before he left. Never once has an audience chanted that I can't wrestle. That led to Cena coming back into the ring, squaring up, smirking, saluting, pretending to leave, only to swing and then eat a crossroads. Cody then did his throwback Bullet Club gesture, pointed to the WrestleMania sign, and Cena was knocked out cold on the canvas. Speaking of knocking things out, Cena and Cody knocked this out of the damn park. These guys knocked over a tanker of gasoline onto the simmering fire that was their feud. And it spoke to exactly what we talked about last week, and that they basically packed 2 or even 3 weeks of material into this one segment. I'm sitting here thinking, holy shit, Cena is eviscerating Cody, except Cody just turns around and defenestrates him right back. So much of this delivered, and it went so long that it's difficult to know where to start. I guess with the easy stuff. Cena delivered an angry heel promo like we've been wanting to hear since the turn. The Rock got properly and logically referenced as we've desired, but he wasn't the focus because he's not the match. Cena further explained his reason for not just turning heel, but doing it because Cody was champion. We badly needed that specificity. And the way both of them manipulated the crowd into chanting what they wanted when they wanted them to chant was beautiful. Cody went toe-to-toe with Cena and did not suffer a single blemish because of it. Just a tremendously composed and executed face-to-face promo that is easily the best of the year through 3 months in 2025. And I legitimately do not know that it could be topped over the next 9 months. You could feel the enthusiasm of both these guys. And I personally felt it largely because both of them got some real shit off their chest and allowed the other to do the rest. The other person said what they couldn't say. Cena talking about his booking and accusations of burying talent. Cody referring to Vince McMahon being the only reason Cena stayed on top as long as he did. Also the crowd apathy that developed from the Super Cena era. Both referencing Cody leaving, failing to get over as a long-term babyface in AEW. Cody doing it from the standpoint that Cena made WWE so bad, he had no choice but to leave. The line about billionaires was, as the kids say, completely out of pocket because the smart fans think he's talking about Tony Khan. The average fan thinks, well, he's talking about Stephanie McMahon and Paul Levesque. But here's what stood out for me most from the entire segment, Chris. Cena was so freaking good that this guy who's been getting vociferously booed in every arena he stepped foot into actually got fans to cheer him and boo Cody. Yet Cody was so incredible coming back that he completely flipped the crowd back, got them chanting, "You sold out, piece of shit, and you can't wrestle in succession." Cena turned the crowd. Cody turned them back. That is almost impossible to do in a singular segment. I do have one minor criticism. I'm going to hold it, Chris, because I would love to hear your take about this segment.
There was a moment toward the end, I think it might have been after the dick part, where Cena almost smiles. And it felt like he was wanting to smile because he had someone talking to him the way he had always talked to other people. So like you said, Cody got the crowd back on his side. And I think Cena felt very proud in that moment. Because look, if we're being honest, Cena has cut this promo many times, and they're always good. He cut this promo against AJ Styles. He cut this promo against Roman Reigns, against Austin Theory, kind of.
Not this promo, but versions of this promo. Yes.
Versions of it. The idea that I'm back because you're not good enough. The idea that people say I bury the talent, well, I'm going to bury you. Like, he does that a lot, but it's good. Like, it's really good stuff. And Cena usually comes out on top in those segments. He's the face, but sometimes he's going up against a fellow face like a Roman Reigns, and it doesn't quite come back the other way. Cody brought it back the other way, which is why he is one of the best on the mic to do this. So this was fantastic. This is what we've been waiting literally a month for. We have some good reasoning from Cena now. More than anything, we have animosity. For 2 weeks, it was basically Cena versus the fans. And I'm sorry if that's not an interesting story. You know, Cody felt like the third wheel to the John Cena story when he's the champion. And so now this brought it all back to the proper level of intensity, focused on the two guys who were wrestling and what they're wrestling for. I'm glad they mentioned The Rock. I still think there's a lot to get into with that, because I still think the basic story from Cena could be like, The Rock's giving me what I didn't quite have, and it's going to help me put me over the top. I don't know. Maybe we get there or not. At least they finally mentioned The Rock. And so this was all great. Not perfect, but really, really good.
Yeah, I think perfect is impossible almost in most situations. This was as good as it could have been, to the point that you made. Cena has cut versions of this promo before. He's never cut this promo to this level because he's never been a heel like this before. And he's never been in a WWE where he could say some of the things the way he said them in this segment. And to give Cody credit, you know, look, Cena's had some formidable opponents on the mic in the past. He's gone up against Edge, CM Punk, The Miz, The Rock. I mean, these are all-timers on the mic. I don't know that anyone has ever leveled up eye to eye with Cena like Cody did in this segment. It was two versions of the same person. And I'm going to make a reference that I have no idea whether it's even a thing that's ever happened in comic books, but it was like seeing good guy Superman and evil Superman standing face to face across from each other, where it's the same dude, but something's off with one of them, right? We've never had that before in WWE. Usually it's just two totally different people. The Rock and Cena, different people. Cena and Punk, very different people. Cena and Miz, different people. You never really see something like this. And the visuals, the individual lines, the way the lines that they spoke landed to the other person, you're 1,000% right about Cena. I would bet a significant amount of money they went backstage and Cena had the biggest smile on his face and was as happy as he's been coming out of a WWE segment in a decade, because he had to have loved every second of that. Again, was it perfect? No, nothing's ever perfect. I don't know that we could have asked for more other than this being what we got the last 2 weeks as well.
Yeah, he loves challenging people on the mic. The Roman Reigns thing. Like, you're going to have to step up to my level in this moment.
Cody stepped up.
And Cody did.
He did.
It really felt like Cena loved that part of it, for sure. Because Roman Reigns was not ready to carry the company
no.
at the time. And that's why Cena said, that's why I keep coming back. But he was right in that moment. He's not right in this moment. And that's why it works with him being the heel.
Totally. And I think if you did Cena Reigns now, Roman could stand up to him. Would he do as well as Cody did? I don't know. But he would do great. At the time they did
do that at that SummerSlam 2020 or 21. They did Cena Roman, because Cena had come back right after Money in the Bank against Edge when I was there in Fort Worth. So they did kind of get back to it. But you're right, it was a different Roman Reigns.
But 2025 Reigns is so much more confident and so much better on the mic than old Roman was even 5 years ago, and he was just starting Tribal Chief. I mean, it's unbelievable. My only actual criticism from this, Chris, was the Crossroads ending it. I just felt like it was completely unnecessary. The heat between them was so immense. The segment could have just ended on a stare down, but this is a wrestling trope in that Cena got the low blow at Elimination Chamber. Rhodes needed to get a physical moment after which he could stand tall on the road to WrestleMania. You want that visual. You want it for the video packages. I get all of that. I just wouldn't have done that myself. It didn't need to happen.
So like this whole European tour, Cody has gotten the upper hand. I mean,
Not physically.
He called him the whiny bitch the first time. He's not scared of him. And like, he's come out on top, and now he comes out on top physically. What that tells me is we're going to get to where we need to, which is The Rock does come back and they leave Cody laying like several times.
Well,
kind of like what we got last year. And so Cody's kind of adding up all the winning points these last couple of weeks. It's going to come back the other way once they get back to the U.S.
Yeah, I mean, I believe there's 5 TV shows left. I would assume they're not going to do that on the Go Home SmackDown right before WrestleMania, 24 hours before. So that gives us 4 episodes of television for The Rock to come back and Cena or The Rock, or both of them combined, to take out Cody in a similar fashion to what happened with Mama Rhodes last year.
Yeah, and I'm sure it will. We're going to go into this match with like Cena feeling like Cena has the upper hand. He has the momentum. You got to put Cody Rhodes in doubt. I mean, that's basic babyface heel 101.
I'm still of the belief Cena needs to win this match. What about you?
Needs to or will? I think those are 2 different things.
Oh, okay, good point. Doesn't need to, should, and will.
I think I'm at should, but I think I'm still at won't.
Okay.
But that could change in the coming weeks.
All right, well,
Cody getting this upper hand so many times does kind of put me in the other direction. But having stuff like Randy and Drew talk about going for the title.
See, I think let me tell you why. I think that's a misdirection because we said the same thing going into the Royal Rumble about CM Punk. He was cutting all those promos on television, and he had that face-to-face segment with Cody Rhodes, and everything that we saw told us Punk is going to win the Royal Rumble. And then he didn't. And then we're at Elimination Chamber. We're like, okay, well, Cena could win, and that would make a lot of sense. But Punk could then main event WrestleMania against Cody. And don't forget that promo he cut, and he didn't. So I kind of wonder if this is following that same trend where they're taking us in one direction, but they're actually going to pull the rug out from under us and go another way.
Could be. Yeah, I'm with you on the should. Like, I do think heel Cena, like we've said for a while, Cody needs to drop the belt and get back into chase mode. And, you know, the 2-man Hollywood power trip, the Break-A-Wish Foundation, could do a lot of fun stuff. I don't know if they will, because remember, The Rock went away after Mania last year.
Right.
And we only got a couple weeks left. So I think there's so much you could do with heel Cena. I would be disappointed if he loses and then like turns good guy again, like right after.
Among the stuff
I'd like this heel run to really go for a while.
It does need to. That's what I was going to say next. Among the things you can do with him are this moniker that he's given himself, Last Real Champion. That's a great gimmick if he wins the title. I mean, we're going to have to wait and see what happens over the next couple of weeks. He's not advertised for TV. Doesn't mean he's not going to show up. But I assume we're going to get both of them on TV, Rock and Cena, at least Cena, probably the Go Home Raw. I can't imagine them going 20 days between now and then without Cena appearing on television. It's not going to
So we have, what did you say? We have 4 or 5 TV shows left?
5 shows, including this week's SmackDown. But I'm not counting the Go Home SmackDown because generally they're not going to run a big angle on that show. So 4 shows where legitimately they can show up and develop the feud for WrestleMania.
I need them on every show. We got 2, 3.
They're not going to be on every show.
Like, I know, and that's the problem.
Yeah.
But like, that's where we're at. The other thing though, remember, Cena said if he wins, he's going to retire.
And don't forget, I had a problem with that, right? Like, I thought that was a huge flaw in their storytelling.
Yes.
So, all right.
I don't know.
We have a lot more to talk about, but we will be doing that on future episodes of the show. There was a funny back and forth in our replies on social media. Scoops at EJ Maroon, he suggested a Line of the Year award as part of the 2025 Getting Over Awards, a.k.a.
the Meaties.
He wanted to nominate the Billionaires line from this segment. And then Matthew at Matthew Pop with 2 Ps, 1982, he said we can't do it because every nominee might have actually come from this segment, which I think is a pretty fair point. I don't think we're ever going to do a Line of the Year for the Meaties, but I just wanted to share that enjoyable conversation with 2 people in our replies. We got other comments asking if we believed this was Cena or Cody's best promo ever. There have been so many great promos from both of them. It's really tough to say. Undesirable to undeniable is always going to resonate from Cody. This was probably Cody's best head-to-head promo. For Cena, it's really tough. This was so unique. I cannot say it was his best off the top, but it was probably among his top 5, Chris.
Maybe. I mean, to me, CM Punk, John Cena, the contract signing for Money in the Bank might be the best one-on-one ever. That's the one that always stands out to me. You make a good point about Cody. Like, he's had a lot of great promos, but a lot of them are just him in the ring. In terms of going up against somebody, I'd have to think. I mean, in the moment, it's hard to say. We always forget. There's always a recency bias there. Like, I'm sure him and MJF had something.
Not this level.
It could be. It could. I mean, we'll see.
I don't think he's ever had anything a back and forth to this level, including with The Rock last year. I don't think that ever actually happened. But yeah, so that's our thoughts as of right now. That's the first part of this main event. We're an hour into the show. We've covered half of a main event. The contract signing that main evented SmackDown is the second half. Roman Reigns was out first, getting the soccer style chants. And this week, Chris, he was back wearing the OTC shirt, except not the one available at WWE Shop. I can't tell you why. He also went back to acknowledge me as opposed to acknowledge your tribal chief. And then fans chanted OTC.
Thank you.
Chris, I am not saying we deserve credit for this. What I am saying is we should take credit for killing YTC, given the way we spoke about it last week. What do you think?
Look, I've said on the show before, I do sometimes wonder if people, some direction. I mean, we know people in the company listen, but
yes,
like people in certain decision-making positions listen because yes, I immediately wrote it down. He's back to OTC shirt. Like, we're done with YTC.
And he embraced the OTC shirts. He called himself the OTC. Like,
yeah,
it was a 180 from last week.
And we, right after we just had talked about it, like how it made no sense. So
we didn't just talk about it. We ranted about it.
Good job. Good decision. Good fix.
Congratulations to me.
So Reigns appropriately sat at the head of the table. I love how he does that. He continued getting serenaded. When he heard Paul Heyman singing behind him, he actually put the mic up to Paul's mouth, which was very funny. Reigns also called himself the OTC twice. We're fully back. Seth Rollins came out after Reigns signed. He was ready to leave. He was looking like, well, he was dressed normally. So he's killed my entire bit where I compare him to inanimate objects. I feel like I was in a wormhole or something at the beginning of this segment.
What is going on?
Rollins reminded that the Shield murked The Undertaker in London and said through all of their hate, they accomplished their mission of reshaping WWE in their image. For some reason, the Shield wasn't verbally mentioned here. Reigns said there's no we, only me, and he's done all the work making WWE better than they found it, record business, Netflix, etc. Rollins had no answer for that. He should have said that unlike Roman, he has appeared on TV and worked a full-time job during this rise in business. Instead, he shifted to his complaint of Reigns letting CM Punk a snake into their garden, saying he's now being forced to clean up Roman's mess like always. Out came Punk, who stood on the top rope. He paraphrased Roddy Piper from They Live. Then he actively read the contract, which basically no one has done in the history of professional wrestling before. Given the last time this guy got papers like this from WWE, he was released on his wedding day. I understand why he was looking at the contract. Reigns was really funny, getting impatient, telling him to go look in the document. It asked him if he needed a highlighter. Heyman said he knows what Punk is looking for, and it's in there. Living his dream in the main event of WrestleMania. Heyman said it like a proud dad, put his arm around Punk, even kissed him on the head. The fans popped real loud for it. Reigns celebrated, saying one man's dream is another man's favor. Punk cried. That led Rollins to rant that Punk doesn't deserve to main event because it's sacred. So Rollins blamed Reigns and Heyman for allowing it to happen. Punk thanked all the fans for chanting his name over 10 years. Roman said he's the one who should be thanked. It's all because of him. So Punk literally got on one knee in front of Reigns, as Heyman told him not to do, and sarcastically thanked his tribal chief for allowing it. Punk then put an exclamation point on the segment saying, "That's not the favor I was owed." And SmackDown went off the air. There's legitimately so much to break down here, Chris. Normally, I would do my best to create some conversation topics so you and I could weave in and out with our takes. So the way I'm going to cover this is basically in 5 parts. The segment itself, the storyline they're delivering, and the role each of the 3 guys played on Friday. The segment was significantly better than a week ago, and it accomplished a lot in the way of upping intensity for the match, particularly between Reigns and Punk, which is where you and I previously agreed it was lacking the most. Punk bending the knee to Reigns, it was not only sarcastic and smug, doing it right to his face, it was done purposefully as a way to further enrage and piss off Rollins. A great touch that should not go overlooked. Furthermore, the favor was not wasted on the main event booking. That would have been a total uninteresting cop-out. And finally, the crowd absolutely loved this. They were fully on board with the main event being a huge deal for Punk. They sold the emotion exactly the way WWE hoped, and they popped for pretty much every single thing that transpired here. Where it was a struggle for me was not the execution, but the storyline itself. It was the cheapest, least exciting way this entire arc of Punk getting his WrestleMania main event could have possibly been achieved. Just written into a contract. That's it. Does he not hate both guys enough to want this fight without it being the main event? If not, why is the match even happening in the first place? Putting it in the contract made it seem like he wouldn't have signed if it wasn't there, which would have frankly been stupid. I know wrestling is not Shakespeare, but Paul Levesque has generally done a great job ensuring that logical story beats are hit, particularly in their top feuds. Given the importance of all 3 guys and the fact that this is the night 1 main event, I expected this to be far more logical, and I expected Punk getting his main event to be far more meaningful. They sold it as meaningful. I just don't know that it was in reality. Okay, so now I'm going to hit each of the guys individually.
Real quick, let me jump in on this main event thing.
Yeah, please.
Because there were actually 2 things I wrote in my notes that made me think us hitting on it a lot last week, and then it came up this week. One was the OTC shirt. The second one was this, because I kind of went off about this point. I was like, Punk in the main event, like, was the story ever since he came back to WWE. Like, that was the entire thing. As soon as he got back, he wants the main event WrestleMania. And so that, like, wasn't even part of the story. And then they kind of shoehorned it in here to a point where it was ultimately not really relevant to the story. Like, they made a thing of it, and it was a nice moment. Very cool that Heyman did it. But it did feel kind of thrown in there to create a moment, and then we just move on to the rest of the story. So, like, it's good that it was acknowledged, but, like, it's very anticlimactic because that was the story for Punk. And now it's just, nope, he's got it. So
I agree with the last point you made, that it's anticlimactic. I disagree that it doesn't have storyline relevance, because he got it because Reigns basically allowed it through Heyman, and it angered Rollins that Reigns did that for Punk, and that Punk doesn't deserve it. So it wasn't even the favor. Like, I thought that might end up being the favor, and said it's not the favor. But I'm glad it wasn't the favor. That would have been cheap for that to be the favor.
It would have tied it together, though. Like, Punk doing whatever it takes. Yeah, I teamed up with the Bloodline just so I could get my main event. Like, I don't know. It was just kind of.
But that's like what a heel would do, right? Because he didn't deserve it. All right, let's agree that it was anticlimactic. Okay, let me hit each of the guys individually now, because I'm going to circle back to Rollins' reaction to it and Punk's reaction to it. Okay, Reigns individually, I felt, was basically flawless in this segment. It was his best showing in anything, probably since the road to WrestleMania last year. He did an immense job reminding us that he's the same egomaniacal tribal chief. You might cheer for him now, sure, but he has done absolutely nothing to redeem himself, and he doesn't act as if he has, which, given he never actually apologized to Jey Uso or Sami Zayn, it's actually a positive that he's not being depicted differently, because that would have been unrealistic. There was even a moment straight out of Goodfellas that I actually posted on social media because it was so crazy similar. Reigns was proud, egotistical, funny, cutting, insulting. He commanded every ounce of aura that was available to him, and he deserved all of it. His pestering of Punk to sign the contract, asking if he needed a highlighter, awesome. His reaction to Punk calling him big dog, and then learning at the end of the segment that him getting the main event was not the favor, his facial response to that, perfect. I have no notes whatsoever for Roman. I almost forgot about Heyman. He was similar to flawless. Both working with Reigns on the comedy aspects, and then acting like a proud papa, telling Punk the great news, kissing him on the forehead. Heyman could do no wrong as well. So both of them, 10 out of 10. both from the work they did and their characters in kayfabe.
Real quick on Roman, I agree and think the best line was Roman saying to Rollins, basically, "We died a long time ago. It's only me."
Mm-hmm.
That was good stuff.
Punk did a fantastic job emoting himself. He was genuinely moved, both in kayfabe and reality, hearing the crowd response to him, just getting his WrestleMania main event. Heyman was as well. You could see it in their faces. And because they reacted as genuinely as they did, it made the entire segment. Punk's promo was on point as well. The big dog mention, Reigns' reaction to it, he was so bothered. I love the fact that Punk got what he wanted, but showed he has a lot more up his sleeve. However, this booking and his reaction to learning about the stipulation, as far as I'm concerned, was completely antithetical to his character. Punk has spent the last 5 months after beating Drew McIntyre, Bad Blood, Hell in a Cell, saying he was focused on A, becoming WWE champion, and doing so by B, earning the right to main event WrestleMania for the first time in his career. You'll remember, I was praising him for some straight fire promos he cut that first Raw on Netflix after that went off the air, right ahead of the Royal Rumble. I talked about how he was crazy locked in and laser focused, and I've never really seen him like that before. But he lost the Royal Rumble. And then he was like that again leading into Elimination Chamber. And he lost that as well. And now Punk, this character who fights for everything he gets and is willing to bleed for it and fight any comers, he's just willing to get handed a WrestleMania main event on a silver platter without doing anything to actually earn it. No. That is such a waste of a compelling story beat. Can you imagine how much more impactful it would have been if he scratched out that clause and slammed the contract shut, saying, this is not how I'm going to main event WrestleMania? That would have been logical character progression. Punk just welling up with tears and being thankful Reigns put it in a contract as a gift for him. As much as the emotion hit and as great a job as he did, it was pretty weak shit comparatively. Instead, he gets the main event in the least satisfying way possible, as opposed to going out and earning it in all the ways that he tried to earn it.
Completely agree. That's basically what I was trying to say earlier. It's just like he didn't earn the main event, which I thought was the whole point of it. So again, anticlimactic and just felt kind of shoehorned in there.
Yeah, exactly. And I know I'm steamrolling here, but Rollins as well. The most praise I can throw on him is that his reaction to Punk being handed a WrestleMania main event was perfect for this segment to generate a really strong crowd reaction. He did his job in that regard. And it's hysterical to think of a guy like him seeing so much red at Punk succeeding. He's looking past the fact that he's also main eventing WrestleMania, which is a positive thing, right? That's real hate.
It's also, by the way, it's also something Seth Rollins has never done.
It himself. Is. Never individually.
Like he had the cash in and he had the tag team match.
Where he was the fourth person in that match.
Yes.
Yeah. But that's real hate. And that's perfectly fitting for his character to look past his personal success because he wants Punk to suffer so much. But the negative I had was the opening promo with Reigns. It was nonsensical. Why is he saying we succeeded, referring to the Shield without specifically mentioning it, by the way, when he's been foaming at the mouth toward this man? Why is he looking at their success together at all? But more importantly, when Roman retorted about WWE doing major business because of him, why did Seth have no answer to that when he and Cody have been the ones carrying the main event while Reigns takes 80% of each year off? Rollins should have straight up hammered him with the truth. That was a massively missed moment for him. Now back to the anger over Punk getting the main event. I understand Seth's character believes Punk doesn't deserve the accolade, but by protesting it as strongly as he did, he's effectively saying 3 of the 4 biggest stars in this company shouldn't be in the main event of WrestleMania. Punk may not deserve it in his eyes, but the match does. And also, again, talking about logic, does this guy not have an agent or lawyer? Why would he not have read this before signing and known that it was in there? Just like Punk's character should not have taken the handout, as you agree with, Chris, Rollins' character should not have been angry. It should have been disgusted. He should have seen the line himself and protested signing in the first place. Then gone after Reigns for giving Punk what he wanted and then called Punk pathetic for accepting it. This is how you want your WrestleMania main event? You want to get it handed to you, written into a contract. You don't want to earn it, become a number one contender, enter WrestleMania as champion, like you told all your fans who chanted your name for 10 years that you were going to do. That would have been so much more impactful comparatively. And maybe that's going to come. Look, like their heads are going to cool down and Rollins cuts that promo Friday night or next Monday. It's possible. But in the moment, this stuck out to me as a major missed opportunity for Rollins' character to hammer Reigns and hammer Punk. So to wrap this all up and give you a well-deserved chance to speak, Chris, let me just put it on this. The building blocks of this are strong. Rollins busted his ass to take down the bloodline, only for Punk to aid Reigns in restoring his role as tribal chief, and for Roman to award Punk, in turn, by giving him a WrestleMania main event. You now have Reigns and Punk at odds, Reigns and Rollins in the long-term feud, and Seth fuming like anger in the Emoji Movie at anything these guys do or say. The baseline angle is nails. It's just that these story beats and how they align with the characters, specifically Punk and Rollins, they could have been handled so much better and so much more meaningfully.
Yes, I agree. And like Rollins not reading the contract, I was fine with, because that's, they never read these contracts. And you also need him to not read it in order for CM Punk to read it, to then learn and be told by Paul Heyman that he's in the main event. Otherwise, Rollins would have already known and yada, yada. So like that order of things, I was fine with. And the idea that, yes, Rollins' hatred over Punk kind of supersedes everything. Yeah, like I'm really into this.
Mm-hmm.
I think the story is like not super clear, because like there's nothing really combining the three of them. They all just kind of have their own individual things with each other, because it's not for a title. It's weird to do a triple threat.
This main event is the thing that connects them, and it's very thin.
Well, sort of. I mean, now it does, but it didn't before. And so that's where it's like, I can see Rollins Roman. I can see Rollins Punk. I can see Punk Roman. But I can't really see the thing that brings them all together, in terms of a triple threat that's not for a title. It's hard to pull off. It's why it's hard to do. So, I mean, I'm into it. It obviously should be the main event. It's just like you said, there's kind of been like a lack of attention to detail on certain things.
What you're talking about really is that this is missing stakes. WWE has not taken a step to make this matter. The two-way hatred between these guys works, as you just said. The three-way hatred, for me, it works as well. It just hasn't reached a fever pitch like it did with Punk McIntyre or Punk Rollins, where you need to see these guys tear each other apart. There is so much history to draw on between these three that remains untouched. And I think that's the frustration. In order to be fully worthy of a main event, truly, you either need insane levels of hate, a championship, a number one contendership, or some other important stipulation on the line. Punk retiring if he loses. He gets Heyman in his corner from Reigns if he wins. He forces Rollins off of Raw over to SmackDown. Whatever the case might be. Fans need something to sink their teeth into. They need to know that something is on the line. This match feels like three guys who immensely dislike each other and have a ton of aura are just coming together to fight a WrestleMania main event. That's not enough. Punk getting his WrestleMania main event, that's not enough, because the other guys have done it. Rollins wanting to prevent Punk from winning a WrestleMania main event, that's not enough. Nor is Reigns, I guess, wanting to prove he's the best out of all three of them. There needs to be a through line. There needs to be stakes. And there's an immensely easy one, Chris, on the table. WWE could have done the exact same segment Friday night, except you have Triple H out there presiding over it. Just like Nick Aldis, he claims that this is the most star-studded triple threat match in WWE history. Aldis said that. And because of that, Triple H says, given the profile and success of all three men, he's going to make it the biggest number one contendership match in WWE history. The winner gets to call his shot at any PLE for the remainder of 2025. And because it's the biggest triple threat and the biggest number one contendership match, it is the main event of night one of WrestleMania 41. Punk breaks down the exact same way. Reigns claims it's because of him, just like he did. Punk gets on one knee and thanks Reigns just the same. Rollins freaks out exactly the same way. But there's actual reason for this match between these three guys to main event WrestleMania. And if you did it this way, Punk isn't getting a handout, so his character remains intact. Rollins can be angry at himself for playing a role in it happening. Reigns can foam at the mouth at an opportunity to regain the championship now that he's already got the Ulafala back. It fits exactly what you want from all three guys, but instead, they just didn't do it. They just put the main event in a contract, and Punk, this guy who said he wanted to earn it, is just like, oh, well, I got my main event. I'm happy. That's antithetical to his character.
You said this last week that it should be a number one contender, and I wasn't feeling it because it felt kind of awkward to do as the main event when you have another world title. But after going through that contract ceremony and calling it the biggest triple threat in WrestleMania and all that stuff, now it does feel like it's there.
Yeah.
I think you laid that out in a very good way where you got to add stakes. So like, I always think about one of the best match vignettes WWE ever did was Vengeance 2002 with Undertaker, Kurt Angle, and The Rock, who all each kind of had individual beefs with each other, but not necessarily together, except it was for the undisputed WWE Championship. That was the thing that they were going for, and tied them all together, and it put the individual feuds into one thing. And you're right. That is what this is missing. It's missing the ultimate stakes. What does Rollins get for winning? What does Roman get for winning? Really? I mean, he can technically kind of go for the title whenever he wants to, it feels like. We don't really know. So I don't know how you would get there after you've already done the contract signing. I mean, you could wrestling kayfabe your way into anything, but that does feel right. That number one contender does feel like something you should put on the line. That way you know it's not like a Money in the Bank where he's going to cash in at the end of night 2, but it's like you can have that person like involved in the finish of night 2 or whatever happens.
They could confront at the end. There's a million different ways that you can do that.
After the match, not interfere in the match.
Right, no, yeah, at the end. But you don't even have to do that because it's not necessarily for the WWE Championship. It's, look, you three are the three biggest stars in this company outside of, Cody, Rhodes, and John Cena. You're not going to say that, but I mean, that's the indication. And all three of you have done enough to deserve a number one contendership. Roman Reigns, you never got your rematch. Seth Rollins, you were the long reigning world heavyweight champion, the inaugural world heavyweight champion. CM Punk, you beat Drew McIntyre at Bad Blood, and you've won some major matches over the last couple of years. The winner of the biggest triple threat of all time deserves to be number one contender and have this, unique privilege of being able to choose your main event the rest of 2025. I'm not saying just because they're not doing it that way that, it's terrible or anything like that. We talk about this on the podcast. Like, people have their fantasy booking, and if WWE or AEW doesn't do it the way they want them to do, it's automatically bad. That's not what I'm saying. My issue is there's not stakes in the match, and the way Punk reacted to this, and Rollins to a slight degree as well, was antithetical to the characters that they've been building regarding Punk's WrestleMania main event over the last, few months, over the last 5 months when it comes to Punk. And I just wish if they had hit those details, all of a sudden this becomes an all-time feud as opposed to something that's very good and we're looking forward to. We're not shitting on it in any, significant way. It's just, it's like 70% of the way there, and it could be 95% of the way there.
Also, I don't remember exactly how all this said it, but it's not the biggest triple threat in WrestleMania history because we have had 2 triple threats for the
for the title in the main event. Yes, of course.
It is the most star-studded one.
Correct.
I would agree with. So again, I don't know exactly what language was used, but I did want to make sure.
I think he said, "Oh, you know what? That's a really good question." I thought I wrote down star-studded, and he said biggest. It's possible he said star-studded as well.
I don't. Yeah,
it is certainly the biggest when it comes to star power.
It is the most star-studded. It's not bigger than Orton, Batista, Bryan, or Bryan, Edge. Roman.
Only because those had the
Because
title on the
those-
line.
those are for the championship.
Yeah, right, correct. I completely agree with that. And it's not even bigger than Becky Lynch, Ronda Rousey, and Charlotte Flair. The first ever women's main event.
Good point.
Yeah, I mean, both titles on the line in that match. This isn't bigger than that, but
again,
it is more star-studded.
You could still say star-studded. These are the most star power in a triple threat in WrestleMania. I would agree with that.
Now,
Just wanted to make sure we shouted out those other matches.
No, you're 1,000% right about that. A major follow-up topic here, obviously, is what the Punk Heyman favor is going to be. Now, given that was a cliffhanger to Friday's segment, I gotta believe, Chris, it's going to be directly attributed to this match. Otherwise, it's this big meatball hanging out there for, who knows how long. So my best guess is I think what we all expect, and that's Punk telling Heyman, you're going to be in my corner for this match, not Reigns' corner. The way it gets delivered, though, needs to absolutely smash, because that would probably complete the loop between Reigns and Punk that solidifies this three-way hate that this match needs just to be equal on all fronts. It could also bring back the part of Roman's character where he believes Heyman might be out to get him and has been conniving, manipulating the situation. And you have to remember, he had that with Brock Lesnar. That turned out to be a ruse. But in this case, it's possible that it's actually real in Reigns' mind. It can actually get to him, shakes his confidence ahead of this huge match. That would play in a major way. I don't know that we have enough time to actually get to that, but that is what I believe the favor to be as of right now.
I guess, but that doesn't mean anything to me. Like, what is in my corner? Paul Heyman can move around the ring. Like, what does it mean? What does it mean?
Like, to have his support. It means something. He's the wise man for a reason, He's not just there to be pretty.
But he can't give him advice during the match.
He can give him advice during the match.
My thought
help
is,
him prepare for the match, be in his corner for the rest of the road. Absolutely.
I guess you're gonna have to define what that means, because if it's just you have to stand over in my corner.
No, he's his counsel for the rest of the road to WrestleMania. You would have to do it before, the go home. Let's say.
Yeah, I guess that could work. I think my first thought went to Heyman helps Punk win or something, or just interferes in the match, and we find out, oh, that's the favor.
Heyman doesn't really interfere though in this role,
No, he doesn't. But that he also, it's weird to have a favor as a storyline,
It is.
So it's got to be something that's big, especially if the main event. I thought the main event was going to be it,
mm-hmm.
and it's not. So it's got to be even bigger. I don't know.
A couple other quick items before we get out of this. WrestleMania 41 is going to be Roman Reigns' 10th WrestleMania main event. He's only competed in 13 of them. Now, obviously, he doubled up last year, but it's still incredibly impressive. That's 2 more than Hulk Hogan, 4 more than John Cena, twice as many as The Undertaker. Oh, and by the way, he battled cancer, missed one event entirely, and did not main event 3 in a row during that stretch. That is a wild run for Roman Reigns.
It honestly might be one of the most impressive stats in WWE history. Like
no one's going to reach that ever.
Ric Flair could only become a 16-time champion by losing the title 15 times.
Yeah.
And in this era where we have 2 titles, it's even easier to kind of rack up world titles, so to speak, because you can win in the same company. You can win 2 different ones. But there's only one guy who's really main eventing WrestleMania and ending the show. And even though this match is going to be a main event and Punk will enjoy it, I think part of him would also admit he's not closing the show.
That was the other conversation.
And that is the thing that Roman Reigns has with all those main events. That's why that is so unbelievably impressive.
Yes. All of them except for now 2 will have main evented either night 2 or the only night of WrestleMania. But this is going to be back-to-back years where he's actually main eventing night 1. So that's notable. And that's what I wanted to close on, okay? I saw talk on social media about Punk being a hypocrite because of this line.
Go ahead, leave. Main event night 4 of a buy one, get one free extravaganza.
Let's be clear about a few things. Number 1, he was in another company hating on WWE, which is what he does best. 2, he was in character. 3, until WWE actually offers BOGO tickets and goes 4 nights or even 2, and it's BOGO tickets, what he said isn't hypocritical in the slightest. And number 4, the main event of WrestleMania Night 1 is a main event. If you have a 2-night concert series and Taylor Swift is the final act on night 1 and Kendrick Lamar is the final act on night 2, you seriously saying Swift is not a main act? Of course not. Stone Cold Steve Austin, The Rock, Roman Reigns, Cody Rhodes, Seth Rollins, The Undertaker in his final match, they all main evented night one. Sasha Banks, Bianca Belair, Kevin Owens, Sami Zayn, and the Usos cried over main eventing night one of WrestleMania. It's a main event. What's not a main event is the opening match or the mid-show match. These are two separate shows with separate tickets that are part of a larger event. Many people only go to one of them. Does night two matter more? Yes, obviously. Night one is still a main event.
This is something you and I kind of sometimes disagree on differently. Yes, they are both main events. What I don't agree with, and it applies to this segment of the show, of the podcast, there is no such thing as a double main event or a triple main event when it's a single night.
I largely
show,
agree with that.
The main event is how you close the show. If you have two shows, you have two main events.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, this is a main event. Was it a little bit hypocritical of Punk? I think it was, but I don't care. Whatever.
No, for the reasons
not,
I laid out, it's not. It's a character move. It's not a BOGO event. It's not 4 nights. I mean, he was very hyperbolic there, and he was doing it to shit on WWE, which he hated at the time. I mean,
he was doing what CM Punk does, which is be hyperbolic.
I will tell you this: if CM Punk wrestles in Saudi Arabia, that will be hypocritical, because on his personal Twitter account, he told Miz to go suck a blood money covered dick. So if CM Punk, actually was to wrestle on one of those shows, that would be hypocritical. This is not. This was in the middle of a wrestling promo. It's completely different.
Yeah, I guess maybe hypocritical is not the right word. By the way, if there's 4 nights of a show and you're main eventing the 4th night, it's even bigger than main eventing the second
I know.
night
He should have said night 1 of a 4 night. That's really what he should have said.
Yeah,
he actually messed that up a little
bit. That's what it would have been.
If
he had said that, that's it. If he had said night 1 of a 4-night event, I don't know if hypocritical is the right word, but just funny.
Ironic.
It's
ironic. Somewhat ironic that he would say that and then it would happen. Yeah, that's what
ironic's the word. Yep.
So
that's why you're a good editor.
Let me say this to kind of wrap this up, Chris. WWE needs to stop promoting the Royal Rumble winners as getting a guaranteed main event match at WrestleMania. Okay. Night 2 is being main evented by an Elimination Chamber winner. Night 1 is being main evented by people who didn't win anything. Okay. WWE needs to just stop this. Start promoting the Royal Rumble winners as getting guaranteed World Championship matches at WrestleMania. That's it. You don't need to go beyond that. And as I've said previously, they got to fix this entire road to WrestleMania next year. The Elimination Chamber in many ways felt more important than the Royal Rumble. The winners certainly stood out more than the Royal Rumble winners. The storylines coming out were better than that out of the Royal Rumble. They've got to figure this entire road to WrestleMania out, and they need to change the way they promote the Royal Rumble winners, because it's a joke at this point.
Completely agree. And Jey Uso was actually wearing a shirt that had said the WrestleMania logo. So it says WrestleMania in main event Jey Uso. He's not main eventing.
No.
I agree. Like, you win the Rumble, you get a title shot.
Yep.
Like, that's what it used to be. And that's why it was a bit, and it often was the main event, because there was only one title and there wasn't a women's Rumble.
And when it wasn't, they would call it a co-main event and they'd put it on second or third to last. And it was stupid, but it worked.
Not a real thing. Yeah.
Right. But it's not a real thing. We agree on that. But now when you have 2 nights and it's not main eventing either night, I mean, give it up. It's as simple as that.
It's a bad look when neither of your Rumble winners are main eventing either night of the show.
Right.
Completely agree.
And both of the world title matches that are more highly anticipated are with Elimination Chamber winners.
Yep.
That's as simple as it is. Wrapping all this up, Chris, getting out of this European tour aspect of everything, I'm fully convinced that this was precisely what we said previously. WWE had no interest on going full bore with WrestleMania build throughout Europe. All of these shows the last couple of weeks were basically filler, with London delivering the major story beats to kick off what's basically a 3-week road to WrestleMania, closing in 2 weeks in the United States, starting on Friday. Given the extended timeline, the way Elimination Chamber was treated this year, all of this made for a less exciting road than we've received previously. And I also believe that last year's road was so hot and unique, building to WrestleMania 40, having The Rock fully involved. Anything WWE did this year naturally would have somewhat paled in comparison, but the way they scheduled it hurt it even more.
Yeah, I don't know how much to put on Europe and how much like not otherwise. When I think about this tour, what's notable? We got the Punk moment. Really, the moment I'm going to remember from this European tour and the build was being in Belgium for John Cena's heel debut. That ultimately kind of ended up being the biggest thing. And it added to the moment. The crowds added to a lot of this stuff. 4 weeks was a lot.
3, yeah.
The other thing, by the way, in a normal year, WrestleMania would have been this weekend.
Mm-hmm.
It used to be the Final Four weekend. So it is. I got to wait to see how they close these last couple of weeks to kind of have a full view of it. But I think the biggest issue, I mean,
there's no argument though. The last 2 weeks were a waste of time
for the most part. My biggest issue with it was how often segments were not real segments. They were just to promote that someone's going to be there
right.
next.
That's what I'm saying.
They were just filling time.
It was filler.
But all of those people are part-timers. And so I can't say for sure they would have been there every week in America either.
Maybe not every week, but there would have been a much greater chance for them to be there if it's a 3-hour flight as opposed to an 8-hour flight.
Right. I don't know if we're getting Rock or not. We're probably getting Cena, I'm sure. But we got plenty of Cena on this trip. But like Punk wasn't always there. And
Reigns
that ultimately was the biggest
there,
problem. Yeah. I guess Punk is a full-timer, but like Reigns barely being there. It's the part-timer is the problem.
Mm-hmm.
If this was a European tour heading into a WrestleMania main event full of full-timers, like it would have been fine. And so,
well, sure, but it's also, Chris,
it's not necessarily going to Europe. It's going to Europe knowing you have to rely on part-timers for your biggest story.
It's going to Europe knowing you need to rely on part-timers. It's having this long of a window between Elimination Chamber and WrestleMania, and perhaps as a creative team not feeling like you have enough content to fill that entire window. They should have been building story beats that kept stuff to a high level of interest this entire time. There was never this much of a down period on the road to WrestleMania last year. Granted, there was less time on the road to WrestleMania last year. So it's partially that, but it's also them in this downtime going over to Europe and relying on hot crowds to buoy shows that lacked creative. I think it was all of that coming together that made this ill-fitting. I mean, the crowds were great until they weren't. And even when they were great, it was just them being loud. It didn't actually help the creative. So it was all a show. You know, it was like the Wizard of Oz almost, where it's like, okay, yeah, the crowds are hot, but the shows aren't great. And then they delivered in London, as WWE usually does at the O2 Arena. And now they're coming back to America, and they have 5 shows, and they'll probably deliver on all of those.
They better. All those part-timers who weren't there barely at all for weeks. We need them all on most of these TV episodes.
I'm extremely curious to find out how often we're now going to get Reigns, Cena, and Rock over these next 5 shows. We need at least 1 Rock, and I would say at least 2 Cenas and 2 Punks.
The other thing, by the way, I have no idea who was on what roster. I don't think it matters at this point. Throughout all of Europe, we got Raw and SmackDown. Yeah. We got SmackDown wrestlers on Raw. NXT people showing up in Spain. I couldn't tell you who's where anymore.
Well, what's hysterical is that the big SmackDown story of Cody Rhodes and John Cena primarily took place on Raw. And the big Raw story of Roman Reigns, CM Punk, and Seth Rollins primarily took place on SmackDown, which doesn't make any sense. Why would you do it that way?
And Gunther was on SmackDown quite a bit.
Yeah, but I mean, that's a little bit different. He's European and they wanted to use him. But
yeah,
I mean, I'm saying they literally flipped those two. And it's just confusing. All right, look, we spent
I was right.
a ton of time on the main event. We had a load to go through, of course. We're finally wrapping that up, but we still have plenty to discuss coming out of Raw and SmackDown. But before we do that, the Silver King does need to remind you.
I happen to love the number 5.
And I hope you do as well, because for $5 a month or $50 for the entire year, you can become an official Getting Overhead. Just visit buymeacoffee.com/gettingover, sign up. You'll get bonus audio, the fastest 5 minutes in professional wrestling, instant reactions to every major show, and exclusive news analysis posts every week. Please support the Getting Over Wrestling podcast financially. Sign up, buymeacoffee.com/gettingover. we would greatly appreciate it. It is now time to break down everything else that happened across Raw and SmackDown, and we're going to do it in the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Hey, yo. Survey says one more for the good guy.
Say hello to the back.
Don't sing it. Bring it.
I got to tell you, Chris, I love that. And it's way better than either song we've ever had for this segment.
I dig it. I actually think it's our best. Yeah, I agree. It's our best good, bad, ugly.
Like, I don't know why we never considered doing something like that previously, but it hits so much better coming into the segment. Like, I don't know. It just makes the show feel more composed than a random song, even though I tried my best to make sure I found ones that fit, but that just works. All right, let's get into the Raw and SmackDown of it all. Women's World Championship, Io Sky defending against Rhea Ripley, the main event of Raw. Bianca Belair was the special guest referee. And to say this woman's abs were popping would be the greatest understatement in this podcast history. Holy hell, Bianca Belair.
Gonna look good, but she's got me saying, hey now!
We posted on social media just so you could see. Ripley got the loudest entrance, but Io Sky got by far the loudest chants, including the soccer style ones. They reacted to everything she did. Io hit a great tope suicida. She slipped trying a poison rana ringside. It was a full-on botch. They just both fell to the ground. Io tried another poison rana off the ropes, but this time Rhea lifted her onto her back, on top of her shoulders again, I should say, with Io sliding down, hitting an avalanche crucifix bomb. Io added a bullet train before Rhea countered a flying crossbody with a targeted headbutt. Great spot. Led to equal dual chants. Io countered Riptide into a DDT, countered into an excellent Razor's Edge by Rhea. She immediately followed with a Shining Wizard on the rebound for a false finish, with Ripley protesting Belair's count for the first time in the entire match. Rhea tried Riptide again. Io countered into a really unique pinning combination. After a string of counters, Rhea inadvertently kicked Bianca in the head. She flew outside. She hit Riptide on Io, but no one was there to cover. Ripley screamed at Belair for, not counting. So Bianca ran inside. They did a false finish. This was after like 30 seconds following the Riptide. Rhea and Bianca argued. Belair had to pull Ripley off Sky for a 5 count in the ropes. So Rhea struck her in the face. Io then accidentally hit Bianca with a missile dropkick as Rhea dodged her. Belair, she got fed up. She had enough. She called for a double disqualification with Io retaining the title. She and Ripley brawled ringside. Sky hit a springboard moonsault. Bianca then beat the shit out of Io, getting deserved boos from the crowd this time. Rhea caught Bianca with a Glasgow kiss, landed a Riptide on both women, and ultimately stood tall. Fans chanted one more time. So Rhea went back in the ring, grabbed Bianca by her braid, dragged her into the corner and up the ropes, and had an avalanche Riptide to end Raw. Both women completely laid out in the middle of the squared circle. Now look, Ripley dominating at the end and standing tall. We always expect that. But in this case, it was actually necessary because she's the odd woman out for WrestleMania. Going with a double disqualification was also important because that's the equivalent of a no contest, meaning Rhea still deserves a title match, which she'll of course be granted at WrestleMania in a triple threat. And this is despite Ripley, again, being her own worst enemy with the boot to Belair, and again throwing a hissy fit when she didn't get her way. One thing commentary missed is they called the match like Rhea would have beaten Io clean, when in fact, she only got that far because of the Bianca distraction. While there were a couple sloppy parts in this match, Rhea and Io, I thought they still banged. Remember, there's a difference between botches, which is what happened at ringside, and slip-ups in the middle of a match. That happens even in a real fight. Knowing what Io can do with Bianca, this triple threat, it's going to be everything I've expected and probably more at WrestleMania. I do believe Belair showed some heel tendencies at the end, maybe because creative had to know that she would get booed, not just calling the match the way she did, but also beating Io in that manner. And yet, everything Bianca did was actually justified in kayfabe. She did flash some of that NXT personality. She looked the part as well. I'll also note that unlike the last 2 weeks, the crowd did not treat her in any type of way without reason. They did chant against her, but it was because of her officiating. They also did a chant for VAR, the English football replay. I thought that was a really nice touch. So all in all, easy good. I thought Ripley looked great. I loved the way Io was treated by the crowd. And Belair as a special guest referee, I thought it was kind of convoluted and stupid initially. It completely played.
Yeah, no, this was good. Not only did Bianca have her incredible outfit in the ring, but before the show, she had like a referee striped suit, much better than Cody's. It was great. She looked good. The match was okay. It ultimately felt big. Like there was a couple slip ups, like you said, but it did feel like it was a big deal. The guest referee throwing the match out is always like a weird thing. It's usually more of a heel type of thing, but Bianca is kind of heel over in Europe, so I don't know if that was part of it. Ultimately, I'm trying not to let the obvious kayfabe of it all, or the obvious what's going to happen of it all, kind of override the kayfabe and get in the way of them telling the story, because they go off the air with commentary being like, "Well, Rhea's not going to WrestleMania though," and blah blah. It's like we know she is,
right?
But I don't want to approach it like that because they are trying to tell the story here, and you could have maybe ended the show with a little more like what's going to happen as opposed to like, well, Rhea's not going because she didn't win. So, but other than that, it was good. Obviously a more than worthy main event. And now we get back to America, and I'm very curious how crowds going to react to all three of these, because it was very different from the last time they were here.
Yeah, that's going to be really curious. And I will say straight up, this is a worthy WrestleMania Night 1 main event, both in terms of star power and crowd reaction to it. If we didn't happen to be getting Reigns, Punk, and Rollins, like this should be the Night 1 main event if that match did not exist. I fully believe that. I love the way it's being booked. This was night and day better compared to last week. You'll remember last week, I tore apart so many illogical parts of that segment they had in the ring and how boring it was and ridiculous. They nailed it this week, and they're right back on track. That's probably the entire time they've been building this, like 3 out of 4 weeks, they've been on point. And there's, 2 more Raws left on the road to WrestleMania. And I have a feeling they're really going to knock this out of the park. Next week, they book the match. The go home is whatever kind of blow up segment that they have. I forgot to mention how much I loved the Razor's Edge Shining Wizard combination for Ripley. That would be an incredible alternate finisher for her. It makes so much sense. You hit the Razor Edge, the person falls backwards and gets folded up, their head pops up, you hit him with the Shining Wizard. It was an awesome sequence, so I just wanted to put that over. Jimmy Uso backstage said Jay being 0-3 against Gunther does not mean the champion is unbeatable. He gassed up Jay through the screen, this is on SmackDown, and put himself over for the slap heard round the world last week. Jimmy then ran into The Miz and Carmelo Hayes backstage, with Miz tearing down both Usos for being sidekicks, particularly Jimmy, who is even secondary to Jay. Miz said neither of them would know what it means to lead the industry like he did in the main event of WrestleMania. Jimmy feigned a slap, Miz ducked, and the match got made. So we got Jimmy against Miz. They both worked the crowd pretty well in the match. I found it tough to actually care. Miz hit an awful Rainmaker and a basement DDT. Jimmy caught Miz flying with an anti-air super kick. He added an Uso splash, got the win. Then he grabbed the headset. He cut a promo into the camera telling Gunther he's coming for his ass, ready to demote him from ring general to private. This may surprise you, but I'm at good as an overall night for Jimmy. I'm fine with him getting built up a bit before he loses to Gunther. It's just, and I'm going to repeat this later, there are so many talented wrestlers on SmackDown, and Jimmy getting this much screen time on the road to WrestleMania, really rough for me personally.
It is a lot of Jimmy, but I think that's because it was leading to something that we'll get to in a minute. It's part of the Jay story, and instead of just having Jay fight people, they're trying something different, give Gunther something to do other than just beat up Jay. And yeah, I thought this was good. This was fine, but obviously more to come.
Indeed. So Monday night on Raw, we had Gunther against Jimmy in a non-title match. Backstage before the match, Jay told Jimmy he wanted to be out there with him, but Jimmy said Gunther is just a man, and they're each going to beat him with Jay becoming champion. Then they dapped up. Jay pulled Jimmy close and kind of ominously said, "I hear you, just be careful." Jimmy poured on the offense early in the match, even hit an Uso splash for a flat 2 count, which commentary sold, but they didn't really sell it well enough. Gunther took his head off with a ringside lariat, later devastated him with a powerbomb and a sleeper hold for, I believe, an actual submission, not a knockout. Production botched. They accidentally showed Jay's entrance graphics while Gunther's music was playing. Gunther attacked Jimmy with another sleeper. Jay made the expected save. Gunther ran through the crowd, and Jay just let him get away, and fans chanted wanker at him. The match was solid. My take as it ended was, man, this feels like another wasted opportunity to actually do something with these guys. I was going to talk about how they haven't cut promos in like 5 or 6 weeks, and Jay lets Gunther run out of the crowd, doesn't even chase him. And then to my pleasant surprise, after commercial break, as Jay was helping Jimmy to the back, Gunther runs back from the crowd, ambushes them. He throws Jay into the steps. He power bombs a security guard into the steel steps. Then he steals zip ties off the dude's body, locks Jay onto the middle rope. He forces Jay to watch as he brutalizes Jimmy and taunted Jay in the ring with the title. Jimmy got domed with the title. He bladed ringside. Gunther powerbombed him. That led Jimmy to shake in the ring before Gunther got on top of him and punched the cut a few times, wiped blood all across his chest. He slightly licked his finger, and I was going to criticize that. And then he immediately hocked a loogie and spit it out of his mouth. Then he locked Jimmy in a sleeper before dudes in suits finally came in to get him out of the ring. Jay was obviously going crazy the entire time, and it was depraved without crossing a line. Basically, Jimmy was Apollo Creed to Jay's Rocky in the 4th movie. Chris, I know you felt immensely passionate about this, and since I took up so much time in the Reigns, Rollins, Punk conversation, I want you to have first crack here.
Dude, this ruled. This was the best thing of the weekend. Like, honestly, like, wow. I think this is better than the Punk Roman stuff.
You thought it was better than Cody and Cena?
I cannot remember.
Hold on. You thought this was better than Cody and Cena? Okay. Awesome.
Yes. I could not believe how, like, the last Crimson Mask we got in WWE was Cody from the Cena attack. And before that, like, I don't even know. Like, I did not see this going as violent as it did. And holy cow, did it add an unbelievable level of intensity that I had not seen in this or any storyline going on in WWE right now. Like, that was nuts. Like, yes, Jay, he seemed to like kind of lose interest and realize he couldn't get to Jimmy, so he kind of just gave up and stood there for a little bit. And yes, he could have moved toward the middle of the rope and gotten closer rather than being in the corner. So there were like a little details there, but Gunther, holy cow, man. This is one of the most heelish things he's ever done.
Yeah.
Like, I thought it was great. And what I think it's going to do is knock out Jimmy until the match. There will be some
exactly.
Ludwig will interfere or something.
Possibly. Yeah.
Jimmy's music, or Jimmy makes the save. And it's a great moment. He comes back and Jay wins. And then the brothers hug in the ring and you get your moment. Basically what I talked about last week. Because Jimmy just kind of like being there and hanging out. It was like, okay. But it's not like there's nothing to like fully grab onto there. Now you have that. Because he got bloodied like very few people in modern WWE ever do.
You're invested into Jimmy as part of this storyline where otherwise you would not have been.
Yes. This is the value of using blood and the value in not overdoing it. Because when you do it, it adds something you didn't expect. It takes it to another level. And it did that. And this feud needed it. This was awesome.
I just wanted to make a point of order here. So Cody did not have a Crimson Mask at Elimination Chamber. He did bleed from the head. Yeah, it was a little bit of blood. The last Crimson Mask we had was Drew McIntyre in Hell in a Cell. And that's why this delivered so much. Because if you're going to do it once every 5 months, it's going to actually matter. Now, my take on this, look, I'm still hankering for some promo work between these guys because when this feud was at its best, they were both talking on the mic those first 2 weeks after the Royal Rumble. But that said, this was excellent. It was so much better than I thought it was going to be after the final bell rang. Jimmy blading from the title shot, the color that he showed, it added so much to Gunther's brutality. He came across as almost bloodthirsty and psychotic. It was all over his body. And it gave Jay so much more motivation besides just proving himself. Don't forget, this was extremely similar to what Reigns did inside Hell in a Cell when he forced Jay to quit and made him the right-hand man. So there was a huge parallel from 5 years ago with Reigns to 5 years later with Gunther, both of them involving Jimmy. I truly hope Jay mentions that next week. This was what this feud needed to kick it back into gear. And Chris, it also delivered on Gunther's Weeks of Hell promise. Now, the task is to build upon it further, ideally with words. Definite good, the best moment in their feud since the second week after the Royal Rumble. And truthfully, as great as both of those weeks of promos were, this was even better than that. The only issue I had, real issue, was the suspension of disbelief that you have 25 people run out there to stop brawls between Reigns, Punk, and Rollins and Flair and Stratton. But no one gave enough of a shit about Jay being handcuffed and Jimmy being bludgeoned in the middle of the ring to physically restrain Gunther. That was a problem.
What? Well, wasn't there some security?
3 security guards
and then
came
they
out.
beat him up?
He took out 2 of them.
Yeah.
And then 5 dudes in suits were there, and they just stood by watching it happen. There were
Well, but it's
25,
not like-
Chris, there were 25 people that separated Flair and Stratton from each other.
Well, that's a whole. We went on about that. That was.
I know you have to
obviously
have a suspension of
too
disbelief
much
in
for
wrestling. I
something
get
that
it.
Didn't deserve it.
But, I mean, come on. I mean, you can't do 2
I'm
pull-apart
saying I
brawls
appreciate-
like that in 1 week, and then the next week have this segment, and no one stopped the guy. It just doesn't really fit.
No, but I'm just saying I appreciate. Like, it's not like nobody came out. Some people came out and he beat him up, and so maybe that makes some other people like a little wary of going out there. Like, you can kayfabe your way around that.
You can. I'm just
You can't
pointing out
kayfabe-
that it's inconsistent.
You can't kayfabe your way around 20 people needed to break up Charlotte and Tiffy. I can't do that.
I'm just
saying
I'm just pointing out
like,
the significant inconsistency. That's all I'm saying.
They did work on it. I'll tell you honestly, my least favorite part of this,
Sure.
shockingly, was commentary at the end.
I agree.
I loved Cole standing up to recap what we just saw and express disgust. It added an urgency to it, him standing up.
Mm-hmm.
But then he goes, Gunther, he's a hypocrite. Like, this dude just left someone bloodied like hell. Like,
yeah.
Oh, he's a hypocrite. He's way worse.
He's a
than
masochist, not a hypocrite.
Horrible human being.
Yeah, exactly.
He's a horrible human being. And that is where Jim Ross was always at his best.
Mhm.
His ability to show disgust
Yes.
and call Triple H every horrible thing you could imagine to describe how terrible of a person he was.
Mhm.
Like, that Jim Ross disgust was his defining trait as a commentator. And Cole he couldn't get there.
No.
It was very much just like, and look, they were like, hey, someone come out here, break this up, blah, blah, blah. Like, they
But
did.
do you remember how?
acknowledge
But do you
it.
remember how he reacted to Bronson Reed and all the tsunamis? He's like, arrest this man. Why is no one doing anything? Like,
Yeah,
that should have been
yeah.
the exact same call he had here.
Exactly. It was just so weird to go from, well, Gunther's a hypocrite, you know? Like, who cares about him?
Yeah, who
being
gives a
hypocrite
shit?
at this point, man? Yeah, like we got some fire there. So, yes. And I also hope I hope we're kind of done with this, like, Jay can't do a jump over the top rope thing. Or he's
I
making
think
some
that's
errors
gone.
in his wrestling.
Yeah, I think that's
like,
over.
I'm done with that. We've got a real wrestling story now. He just almost killed his brother.
Yeah.
Like, let's go with that fire now.
Now coming out of this, Chris, it feels to me like Gunther and Jay should probably be a no disqualification match. And if they did that, it would not only play into the level of brutality that we saw in this feud, it would also give Gunther an excuse to lose the title without it being a pure wrestling match. Because look, he is the ring general and he really shouldn't be losing to Jay, right? He can say Jay needed chairs and kendo sticks or whatever the case to excuse his loss. And yet Jay can win straight up without any interference or without anyone actually helping him. So my question is, do you think it will go to no DQ or something similar? And do you think it should?
I don't think it will. I don't think it should. I think you need Jay to beat Gunther in a wrestling match. That is still part of the story. Not that, obviously, Jay not make a fool of himself,
Mhm.
but like, Gunther is the better wrestler. And I think you need Jay to win a wrestling match.
Interesting. I would like to see some stipulation, not a street fight. And I know the rules are all very similar, but like a no DQ, no count out, something like that. I think if they added just a little touch of something here, it would really fit what they gave us on Monday night, and it would probably help the storytelling of the match itself. We will find out. Naomi showed a lot of emotion in a promo package wearing a dress fully made of caution tape. And look, as I was putting these notes together, I realized anything I said would pale in comparison to the way Naomi said it. So because of that, here's Naomi.
I really don't want to deal with this. But one thing that I do know is that I've always been a woman to do the right thing. I've always been a woman to do the right thing. So Bianca, what makes you think that my attack on Jade was anything different from me doing the right thing? When I sit here and think about all that I've sacrificed, all that I've given, and that's what really breaks my heart. Because through all of that, I'm made to be the bad one in this situation. I just don't understand, how does Jade come in out of nowhere and take my place with you? I want you to ask yourself this, Bianca. Who inspired you? Who's inspired women over the last decade? Who's always had your back from day one of you being here? Me. Not Jade. But you know what? What I've learned through all of this, you teach people how to treat you. And I'm done with being treated as a third wheel. I'm done being pushed to the side. I'm done with being too nice. I'm done with being undervalued, underutilized, underappreciated. So moving forward, here's my message to you, Jade. If you continue to be in my way, I strongly advise you to proceed with caution.
Holy shit. Jade Cargill backstage was angry Naomi wasn't there, saying it's on site. She ran into Michin and BFAB. They fully got Jade's back, gas drop. We talked about the in-ring segment with Bianca Belair being the best mic work of Naomi's career. And maybe that's still true, but this was easily the best straight promo of her entire career. Full stop. And you know what, man? It was one of the best promos of 2025. Period. This woman has been bouncing around doing glow shit for a decade. While this was inside her the entire time, look, at least it's getting brought out right now. This was immense. 10 out of 10, no notes. The video package, the way this was produced, was just as good as the promo. You really need to see it as well as hear it. And if you missed it, you can find it on our social media accounts. As the kids say, Chris, Naomi ate here. Drew is always right. KO is always right. And now Naomi is always right. Who can argue? I loved how she put the onus for everything on Bianca rather than Jade, especially pointing out how Belair leaned on her coming up and how Naomi's a legend that basically got taken for granted. Proceed with caution. It may be a little bit corny. She's literally wearing caution tape. You know what? The way this character started, it actually fits. The visual elements, the production, it all hit. And it was not lost on me that she was wearing a razor blade necklace, which will always pop me every single time. This storyline, this gimmick, it has actual legs. Naomi could be a women's champion with this gimmick. Maybe Money in the Bank is in her future. I wish we had a better grade than good. This was straight up great.
Yeah, it was fantastic. Terrific. The caution tape outfit was awesome. Not just the one she wore in the promo, the one she has a different one in the ring later. This was everything. This was everything I wanted the whole Naomi thing to be. This was so much better than like crying and I did it for you and blah, blah, blah. No, this is, she's upset that Jade took her place. She's upset that Bianca didn't appreciate her and how much of an inspiration she was to so many people coming up. This is a heel who thinks they're in the right for themselves, and they are kind of right.
Yeah.
They're also a bit selfish. This was great. This was everything I wanted Naomi's turn to be. And yeah, she looked awesome, man. This was fantastic.
That was a good one, yeah.
Charlotte Flair against Michin was scheduled based on her being friends with B-Fab, but Naomi attacked both of them before the bell. She flattened Michin in the ring, went after B-Fab on the announce desk before Cargill made a save. Naomi immediately got out of dodge. Jade helped B-Fab to the back. She also did a stare down with Charlotte on the stage during her entrance. It was clearly supposed to be like a moment, but it didn't really get a reception like the one Becky Lynch and Rhea Ripley did last year. You also cannot compare, Cargill and Flair to Lynch and Ripley. The match happened anyway. Fans literally booed when Flair did the thigh driller. The crowd was relatively dead for this until the fans spontaneously erupted in FU Charlotte chants, so she flicked them off. Michin actually landed eat to feet with Flair getting a toe on the rope. Charlotte avoided a kick outside. Michin booted the steel steps. That allowed Flair to lock in the figure eight for a submission. Immediately after the bell backstage, Tiffany Stratton said Charlotte loves to hear herself talk, and she's so insecure, she wouldn't even let a rookie speak last week. Tiffy said Charlotte is the one with everything to lose because Stratton is apparently undeserving and a little girl. Then she said, what will stay in Vegas is Charlotte's ego. Good luck with that. But seriously, pretty nice bounce back promo from Tiffy. Of course, we shouldn't have needed her to get a bounce back promo. And it's ridiculous that they were literally separated on this episode so Stratton could get a little juice back. But it was better than the alternative of just moving forward as scheduled. You could tell Tiffy was still scripted, but she delivered it better than most of her other promos. She's still way more of a natural heel. She's not really ready to be a babyface like this, but it hit better than usual. As far as the match, it was not heel heat, but go away heat for Charlotte. And look, that's understandable, especially after last week. All in all, between the Naomi attack, Michin actually getting legitimate, valuable run against Flair, and the Stratton promo chaser, it was good. It was certainly far better than last week. The problem with this feud, though, is there's just nothing to sink your teeth into. Flair wanted someone to step up. Stratton did, but then she said she's a wannabe. Okay, and that's what's missing. The and.
Yes, that's exactly what it is. Tiffany did the best she could to recover. It was always weird and dumb that Charlotte kept interrupting her. Again, you want to put your next rising star in position to succeed. And they didn't last week. And so now they did by having Tiffany kind of do it on her own. And some of the points she made were kind of complainy. And she is obviously a natural heel. It is kind of weird that people were cheering her during the Nia stuff and ready for her to cash in and turn face. And then it took forever for them to finally do it. And they did. But some of that momentum was kind of gone. So, step back in the right direction. It's good. This whole thing still hasn't been great, but this was all good.
It was just much, much, much better than last week. Quack Attack is back. Zach wrote on Spotify. He loves the new remix here with the legendary bad guy Razor Ramon. Thank you so much. He said Charlotte is like a compiler in professional sports. Always gets her numbers, never makes anyone better. Being able to elevate your opponent makes good wrestlers great. Charlotte isn't there. Becky, as Silver King you already said, is there. The Game Genie shout out to Christmas 1989. He's referring to what I said last week. I saw some of you write in that the reference to the Game Genie really popped you. I don't even know where I pulled that from, but it was an incredible piece of technology back in the day. And if you ever had it, then you definitely understand why. Judgment Day commiserated backstage with Finn Balor and Dominic Mysterio saying brothers sometimes fight, but they're on the same page now, and especially because there's no talk of adding a new member. Then Finn shaded Raquel Rodriguez for losing, saying he would bring home the Intercontinental title to them. No grade this week because it was short and nothing much really happened here. We had Braun Breaker and Penta against Finn and Dom. Breaker hit a double vertical suplex before teaming with Penta for what I'm going to call a Doomsday Sling Blade Bulldog. Dom prevented a Mexican Destroyer before Braun accidentally speared Penta in a slightly convoluted setup. Balor added coup de grace onto Penta for the 1-2-3. Finn Balor, pin Balor, bump that. We're on to win Balor, ladies and gentlemen. Penta later screamed at Breaker backstage for being stupid. Balor backstage bragged to the crew that they won and he's on a roll. He said he was going to Pierce to get himself another Intercontinental title match. Liv Morgan recognized that Finn was doing this, and she told Dom they won the match together. He deserves his own opportunity. Dom protested this, but Liv said she would get him a match too. Now we got the right winners in the match to advance the story. A fun match from bell to bell. Braun Penta was a pretty interesting pairing. It was good, all things considered. It just feels like the Intercontinental title angle should be way hotter from a storyline standpoint. The wrestling's going to hit. Balor, he not only stood tall, he became the first person to pin Penta since he debuted in WWE. That's certainly not nothing. And the way Liv is looking out for Dom's best interests, with Dom still kind of willing to play second fiddle to Finn, it actually kind of paints them as baby faces, with Balor being the egotistical try-hard leader. That is if you completely ignore reality. Because reality is that Dom cost Finn the opportunity, and Braun had Dom defeated when Finn saved him. So Liv is actually gaslighting like a mofo here. What I wonder is whether people remember the circumstances of any of these matches. I don't know. I had to kind of remind myself as I was putting this together. But like I said, all in all, it's good. The 4-way at WrestleMania, it's going to be really solid. I just feel like going with Breakker and Styles in a singles match for the Intercontinental title, it probably would have hit better.
Yeah, it would have hit way better. This was good. It was fine. My big takeaway is like over the last month or so, Dominic is mostly just trying to make friends.
Yeah.
And everyone else around him is just being really evil and mean.
Yeah, he's not the worst guy in the faction anymore.
No, he's not. He's just wanting to bring new people in and gas up his friends, and that's pretty much it.
Yeah, it's pretty funny. So was this good for you all in, I guess?
Yes.
All right, cool. United States Championship, LA Knight defending against Braun Strowman. Knight was obviously on the face side. He had some nice, somewhat surprising even, power moves on Strowman. As Braun did the express late in the match, Jacob Fatu blindsided him with a flying shoulder tackle before a Samoan drop into the announce table. He got the Ole Fatu chance while beating Strowman in the ring. Knight interrupted and got booed for 1 second before fans immediately cheered him. Fatu caught him with a pop-up Samoan drop and murked Strowman with 3 hip attacks plus 2 jump-up moonsaults. Later backstage, Solo Sikoa with Tama Tonga confronted Jacob for attacking without their help. Jacob snapped, reminding they did the same without his input last week. Pretty damn good point, Jacob. Solo told him to lower his tone, so Jacob actually did. He promised he will be the last man standing against Braun with or without them. Chris, I know you had a pretty strong take on this one.
Yeah, mostly that this was just like another interference in a U.S. title storyline picture match. Like we keep getting these.
Mm-hmm.
And it would have been nice for LA Knight to get a win, as champ, a good win. But it's weird that this and the Intercontinental are both heading toward multi-man matches. And
see, I don't know if this one is.
You don't think we're going to get LA Knight, Braun, and Fatu, and maybe Solo as well?
No, I for some reason believe it's going to be straight up Knight and Fatu.
If it is, I'm cool with that. It just feels like by having Braun lose this way, like he didn't interfere and have Braun lose. Like he just DQ'd the match. Braun gets another shot at the U.S. title. So I don't know unless you have him lose another match before Mania. But it feels like we're going to another multi-man match here, just like the IC title, just like the triple threat of night one, potentially like the tag team situation as well. We got a triple threat for the world women's title. We got a lot of people being crammed into a lot of matches, and it feels like it feels like LA Knight again is not the main story of the US title storyline.
Yeah, he's not.
Which was the problem last time.
Yeah.
It's currently Jacob Fatu and Solo Sikoa.
Yeah,
so
you're right.
That is frustrating.
No, you nailed it. I mean, this was about what we expected from a booking standpoint. I understand why Fatu and Strowman are feuding, right? You want Fatu to get a huge win over someone like Braun. But Knight in the United States Championship, to your point, they're being thrust into this storyline, and it's just forced. It's completely out of place, especially given how many men exist in the SmackDown mid-card and how many other title feuds could be getting built for WrestleMania. Now, if the idea is to go triple threat or 4-way at Mania with Braun and or Solo, that is the wrong move. If the idea is to go Knight and Fatu one-on-one, like you said, that's great. But there's no need to have Knight involved at this juncture. Let the meaty men settle their differences and let the winner become the number one contender. Kiss. Keep it simple, stupid. The Fatu confrontation backstage, that was extremely well done. But you know what I'm going to say at the end here? Why, oh, why are we seemingly doing another last man standing match? This is going to be the third one on the main roster in 12 months, the second involving Braun in the last 6. Why is Falls Count Anywhere never considered? Why can't Jacob just fight Braun, even in a street fight, let's say, and pin him. Why are we protecting a 41-year-old dude who can't move anymore? Let him get beaten. 1, 2, 3. Put someone over. Someone help me, please. This was good enough as a pair of segments. They're really going to need to up the intensity between Knight and Fatu over the next couple of weeks if this is going to be the Mania match. Because right now, as much as I love Jacob and I like Solo, and I'm pretty much a huge fan of LA Knight, this doesn't feel like anything that belongs on WrestleMania.
No, I'm giving it a bad, by the way. And I'm worried that LA Knight just is kind of there to hold the US title to give it up to Jacob Fatu. And instead of like building up LA Knight as like a dominant US champion, and then he loses the title to Fatu and it looks incredible, it's just this 50-50 booking crap.
Yeah.
Like, again, the Randy Orton, Drew McIntyre thing was awesome. Give LA Knight some big time wins if you're going to have him lose the title.
And if they were going to,
problem with his first reign, and they're not doing it.
And if they were going to go multi-person and they wanted Knight to be involved in it, seriously, they could have kept the title on Shinsuke Nakamura, had Fatu and or Strowman cost him his opportunity. They all feud. You have Fatu and Knight getting into it. Fatu and Solo have a problem. Strowman and Knight, they team, but they have an issue. And all of a sudden, you have a legitimate multi-man match where you know Nakamura is going to lose the title, and Fatu wins. We think Knight's going to, but Fatu wins. And then on the back end, on the road to SummerSlam, you have Jacob Fatu and LA Knight and a big feud for the United States Championship. That's the way you book a mid-card title. You don't use Knight as like a go-between to get the title from Nakamura over to Jacob Fatu. It doesn't really make sense. Now, look, that said, you do Fatu and Knight, and it's a great match, and Solo interferes, and he costs Fatu, and then they feud. Okay, that's legitimate as well. It just doesn't really feel like this is something deserving of WrestleMania. There's a lot of matches on this card that are immensely strong, and the vast majority of these WrestleMania matches are legitimate. But there's some, like the mid-card titles right now, they just feel thrown together, and it's like, why could you not have just put together a cohesive, meaningful storyline for these straps? It doesn't really make a lot of sense.
Agree.
Lyra Valkyria backstage thanked Bayley for getting her back and said she needs to prove that she can actually stand on her own 2 feet. Lyra said Bayley is the lone person to beat her since she became champion, and she needs to prove to herself that she can get the win back as a fighting champion. Now, I have a feeling next week's not going to end clean, but Valkyria does need to get the win back, and I hope she does. Now, look, this closes the loop on the story, and it's what I desired when Bayley won that match in the first place. The problem I have is it should be Bayley pushing for the title because it means something to her, as opposed to Lyra saying, well, you beat me, so I want to give you a title match. I'm not against that normally, but when you're starting a brand new title like this, you want the veterans who have been around for a while actively desiring the strap. And because they're having Lyra do all the build, it's not Bayley that's going after it. It's Lyra that's granting this to her. This also happened on TV and not social media. That was a positive as well. This division needs a lot more time on television once we get out of the road to WrestleMania. This was good as an individual segment and booking. My expectation, though, Chris, is that it's going to be Lyra and Bayley going after the women's tag team titles with Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez somehow interfering in this match next week.
Could be. I think the order in which they're doing that stuff is because you want Lyra to be the focal point of it because she is the champion.
And that's a legit
if you
point.
Make it about, and because since she won the title, she was barely on television for like a month. So like you kind of got to get her in front of us a lot. And so that's what they're doing. And I get it.
I accept that. It's just, I want Bayley to desire this, right? I want the main women on SmackDown to desire the United States champion. It should not just be Zelina Vega, Michin, and B-Fab going after Chelsea Green. Like Nia Jax should want that United States championship, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So that's important. That's how you establish titles, and they're not doing a great job of that.
What you do is you have your new champions beat some of those people.
Exactly.
You beat a bunch of mid-carders, and then like a main eventer is interested in your title, and then you have a good story.
Right, and maybe you beat one of them, but then when you fight the second one, you lose to them, and all of a sudden, a main eventer holds that title, and you're like, wow, this means something. Because Liv Morgan has the title.
That's how you elevate. That's how you elevate a mid-card title, and that's why Lyra beating Bayley, as we assume will happen, will elevate that title.
Yeah, theoretically, yes. Let's move to
which is not happening with LA Knight.
That is not. This was good for you or no?
Good.
WWE Tag Team Championship. Street Profits defending against Pretty Deadly. So I'm actually into the Profits' new entrance theme. The problems are, it actually starts off sounding like Solo Sikoa's entrance. And
that's what I said.
And it doesn't get the crowd as hype as the original. If they could figure out a way to change the front and then up the intensity, I think it's a really good theme. But yes, you are correct. The very beginning sounds like Solo, and it's like, why is it even that similar? It's ridiculous. The challengers came out dressed in the Union Jack. Deadly did the catapult cold breaker. Another great spot where Kit Wilson rolled Elton Prince out of the way so he could take the brunt of a frog splash. That allowed Prince to do a crucifix pinning combination on the landing for a false finish. Deadly then hit spilt milk for a broken fall. Fans were fully behind the hometown boys at this point. Angelo Dawkins countered a second catapult cold breaker. He got Wilson onto his shoulders. Montez Ford connected on the Doomsday Blockbuster for the Profits' first title retention. Boos for the faces, but understandable given the situation. So much for the booking that we expected for this tag team title situation, right? I thought it was going to be hot potato from one team to the next on the road to WrestleMania. You're in London, so you have Pretty Deadly win. It just made all the sense in the world. I actually feel, Chris, there was an opportunity to strap up Deadly here and boost them a little bit, and it was missed. At the same time, I really wouldn't have liked the Profits to win the titles after a 4-year absence of the straps and then just drop them immediately. This was a fun match. Hopefully the start of Deadly getting back into the regular swing of things, being more than just backstage fodder. The slingshot code breaker is a bit convoluted, but otherwise, this was good.
It was good. Pretty Deadly didn't get as big of a reaction from the London crowd as I would have expected.
Initially.
Even coming out in the Union, I was expecting like big pops, big Pretty Deadly chants. The fact that most of the chants that they were doing for them were in the like American style of like da 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 da. I was like, they don't have anything to sing about Pretty Deadly. How did they not have something? So, but they got into it as it went on. I agree with you. Profits winning. You want to bring some legitimacy back to not only the titles but to them, and that worked. But look, even with the Profits winning and beating some of these teams, like the division has been built up in a very good way.
There's no doubt the division is better than it was 6 months ago. You can't even question that. I am of the belief, though, that this tag team storyline has lost some steam since going over to Europe. At one point, it seemed like
I don't even know what the story is now.
Well, it seemed like a 5-way ladder match was inevitable and deserved, given the booking. Now that the Profits have the straps, it just kind of feels like that was the story, and now it's over. Now, WWE did, to their credit, post 3 different tag team segments on social media after SmackDown. And there are still 3 editions of SmackDown left. But the last 2 weeks, Chris, just isn't as hot as it was previously. And it wasn't getting great reactions, but you and I were enjoying the story.
Yes. I just, again, I'm not sure kind of where we go from here. Do we just throw everybody in and do, as we try to figure out a number 1 contender, they put them all together? I don't know.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. So we had New Catch Republic, the seafood restaurant, against New Day on Raw. Tyler Bate made his return appropriately in London, with Adam Pearce selling this as a big surprise that he promised. Fair enough, given the location. And unlike Jimmy Uso, Tyler Bate was at least somewhat of a surprise. I'm just glad to see him back after 8 months out. Dude finally cut his hair as well, which was long overdue. Bate got a big reaction on his return and on his hot tag. Kofi Kingston hit Pete Dunne with SOS. New Day ultimately cheated to take out both guys without the referee seeing. They hit Daybreak and got the win. They demanded a title match after the bell. War Raiders confronted them on the ramp, and it was kind of a pretty nice old school visual, just the way they were standing off from one another. Good match, solid establishment win for New Day. I would have loved another 5 minutes just to make a good match a great match and get more heat on the heels. What I'd actually prefer is Pierce next week demanding they win another match before getting a title shot. Regarding New Catch, I hope there's some character development on the back end over the next couple of weeks, because both of them played their roles great. Bate out there as a smiling babyface. Dunn basically still a heel. He had no patience for any of the bullshit. They should not really be aligned anymore based on like their perspectives. So they're going to need to get on the same page. But I do believe getting them back together, you have New Day, you have War Raiders, there's some other teams on Raw. This division is starting to percolate again like we've seen on SmackDown. Not the same way, but the talent is there. You add a team or two, you make stuff interesting, and all of a sudden you have a legitimate tag team division on Raw.
Yeah, it was interesting. Another British team also losing at home. So it's like we're back in the old days as well.
Yeah.
New Day just been floundering. They had to do something. You got to give them some wins. So step in the right direction.
Yeah, talk about losing steam. This has lost steam.
Yeah, like it was okay ultimately. Like I guess I'll say good. Mostly that it wasn't bad, and it had been bad for so long.
Yeah. Kaden Carter and Katana Chance fought the Secret Hervis on SmackDown. The setup for this was a backstage segment where the Caseys were supporting Zelina Vega. The heels came in, talked down to her. Zelina suggested they all fight. Chelsea Green chickened out. Piper Niven and Alba Fire both wrestled in suits. They looked amazing. Alba also frisked the referee before the bell. I don't know if you caught that, but it was hysterical. They are completely eating this gimmick up and doing an incredible job. Piper accidentally caught Alba with a senton. The Caseys botched some tandem rolling move before Carter somehow hit a freaking Samoan drop on Niven. They did a keg stand chaser for a broken fall. Chelsea distracted during the finisher setup, and then Piper Driver crushed Carter for the 1-2-3. Zelina ran down for the post-match save, but Secret Hervis straight murked her as she was about to finish Green. Let me start with negatives. The Caseys botch was terrible, and it was immensely illogical, given the setup to this match, that Vega was not ringside with her supposed friends, given Green was out there the entire time with the Secret Hervis. The entire match happened because of Zelina, but she's not there to counter Chelsea. On top of that, 2 commercials broke this up, which was annoying. I was able to overcome that because it got plenty of time, and that was positive. I'm glad the Caseys got a spot on TV. Hopefully that's just the start of them getting integrated again. Hervis needed to get an establishment win. Plus, that Samoan drop from Carter, it was incredible. It completely made up for the botch. So I'm going to go with a light good here. It really should have been a flat good, but because of all the issues I mentioned, it's a light good.
It's a good because Piper Niven got another win.
She did.
Like, the most shocking part of the last 2 weeks has been Chelsea's goons are getting wins. They beat Zelina. They beat Carter and Chance. Like, that was totally unexpected and it refreshing and enjoyable. The Caseys don't need to win. They also still don't have a name.
Right.
The Piper Driver for the win. Like, thought it was all good. I'm kind of surprised Zelina wasn't out there beforehand and has to come down to make the save. But yeah, this was good. I mean, I don't know if I buy Zelina since you just lost to Piper, and I don't think Zelina is going to take the title off of Chelsea, so maybe I don't need to. But yeah, I mean, the goons are getting wins, and that's different, and I love it because Piper is awesome.
If you're going to send someone out who has great entrance music and it's going to pop the crowd, like, you can kind of disassociate from the lacking logic of them not being ringside in the first place. But Zelina's music hits, no one knows who it is, and she just runs down to the ring. She's tiny. It doesn't make any sense. She should have been there the entire time antagonizing Chelsea. It was really stupid. Now, I don't think we've noticed this because she doesn't win as regularly as you and I would like, but I think Piper is actually kind of like Gunther in that she now has multiple finishers. She won last week with a running basement crossbody. She's won with the Boss Man Slam. And here she won bringing back the Piper Driver. I love that for her. When they eventually break up Secret Hervis, Piper becoming U.S. champion as a babyface is an absolute must. I bet you she would get over huge. AJ Styles opened hour 2 of Raw, daring Logan Paul to meet him in the ring. Logan got loud, "Who are you?" chants, I believe, and those devolved into STFU chants. Paul said he's the father of a daughter now. I am so sorry for that kid. And he forgave Styles for what he did at Madison Square Garden, but he said he wouldn't forget. AJ said he forgave Logan for being the biggest douchebag in WWE history. Styles said Paul has talent, but that only gets you so far. You need to be able to risk everything to succeed and make the fans care about you. I think the fans chanted Logan's shit. He called the fans poor, said he doesn't fight for free, and he challenged for WrestleMania. They brawled with Logan using the middle rope for a low blow, and then he hit the pulverizer, which, despite my distaste for him and pretty much everything he does these days, it is a fantastic move. I found it extremely difficult to care about this segment and even tougher to like what they were doing on the mic. It was extremely paint by numbers. Logan was completely rattled by the London crowd. The dude was shook. Ain't no such thing as halfway crooks. You know how much improv ability he has?
0.0.
0.0.
Zero, Mr. Blutarski.
I simultaneously want Styles to be in something bigger at WrestleMania, yet I recognize that this match is going to get more attention than anything else he would have been in. But I found myself indifferent from start to finish, and that's almost worse than actively disliking something. This was bad.
This was horrible, man. I feel bad that why did AJ Styles and what could be his last WrestleMania get stuck with Logan Paul?
I can't imagine it's his last WrestleMania.
And like, I have been someone who says I think Logan may win a world title, and as time goes on,
heaven forbid,
maybe feel less so.
Yeah.
But he's like Zoolander. He has one thing, and that's all he can do. All he can do is fall back on, I'm rich and famous, you're all poor.
Right.
That's it. That's all he can do. And because he has no relationship with AJ, or AJ kind of has no connection or real storyline, like Logan doesn't even, like, when it was him in LA Knight, he talked about, like, you know, you were a manager, you've been doing this forever, and you still can't, and I'm already ahead of you. Like, it doesn't work with AJ Styles. You know, it's just, there's not a natural story there between the two of them.
There's none.
And so when Logan does his normal shtick, it matters nothing to AJ Styles, and it matters nothing to us. So this was ugly, and I feel bad that AJ Styles is kind of in this position. It feels kind of like Kurt Angle going out with Baron Corbin.
Well, that was a disaster. What the hell was that? What was that, huh? This is unacceptable.
Yeah, it's unacceptable. I am aligned with you in that it was really bad. I don't know that it was ugly necessarily, because the crowd still kind of reacted to it all, but
the crowd reacts to everything, though. It's Europe. There's nothing they don't.
No, that's not true. There were many moments over the last couple of weeks where they really didn't pop, but it feels like it's entirely go away heat for Logan. Like, people are not booing him because he's a heel. People don't want him on the screen, and he's being force fed to us. And like, that is immensely problematic.
What is the story here? Like,
there isn't one. There isn't one.
That's why I don't understand.
There literally is not a story here.
It's not even like this is AJ's last WrestleMania, Logan. Like, it's just.
I can't imagine that because of all his injury time, I can't image this is going to be his last WrestleMania.
It might not.
I'm sure it'll be next year.
There's just literally no story.
I know.
It's not like they have no connection.
It's just so crazy that he came back and he did those 2 stare downs backstage with Braun Breaker, and you're like, oh shit.
Yeah.
He's going to challenge for the IC title at WrestleMania against Braun. That's going to be incredible. And now it's Logan Paul. And you both of them are doing worse things than they otherwise would if they worked together.
Like, what does Logan Paul even want out of this?
Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah.
That hasn't been communicated.
It's not good. Chad Gable backstage put over El Grande Americano to Pierce while continuing to act sick. Pierce said it's a shame because Raw is going to be in his hometown of Minneapolis next week. Gable protested, but Pierce said it would be Americano wrestling next week. It's so funny to say Americano. Alpha Academy, all wearing Alpha Babes shirts. What is this group name? Like, why haven't they changed it or figured it out? It's so weird. They approached Pierce. Gable dissed them before Maxine Dupree basically shared that she's starting a tag team with Natalya. At least that's what I took from it. Largely nothing segment, not worth a grade, but I hoped for more follow-up from last week's debut with Americano than we got here.
Yeah, I mean, just, they'll be in Minneapolis where Gable's from, and whatever. We'll see how it is next week.
There was another smoke-filled vignette which featured teases that fans might be able to decipher as Aleister Black, but it was nothing explicit. There were words spoken here. I couldn't make out any of them. I listened to it back on the computer, raised the volume, couldn't make them out. I looked to see if anyone else wrote them down. I just couldn't figure it out. 2 Roman numerals flashed on screen, 4 and 25, which points to the SmackDown after WrestleMania, April 25th in Fort Worth, Texas. We had only seen the number 4 previously, and there is a SmackDown on the 4th in Chicago, but doing a return before Mania never really made much sense. I like the way these have been handled for Black, but let's just keep hoping not much more is given away over the next month. Because right now, you technically don't know who it is, and that's cool.
I refuse to acknowledge it. As I said like a month ago, you do not need to tease person you just said his return at all. Stop doing this.
I don't even know that it's him. I'm literally just assuming, though. Like, I have no news that this is definitely for Aleister Black. Seems like it is.
No, it's
But but the point is, this is a teaser that is not, as of right now, explicitly giving it away.
it's good if it's gonna be him, and we're gonna be annoyed. Like, I don't like it.
I don't
like it.
I don't put this in the same category as pre-announcing Cody Rhodes for the Royal Rumble coming back from injury, or showing Penta's name on a promo, or the other one that we got on Friday night. This is in a different category. So far, they're not ruining it, quote unquote. The surprise.
Yeah. I don't want to have to think about it is the thing. That's it, unless it's somebody who hasn't been in WWE.
So you don't want a vignette at all? Like, what's the problem with this? What's your problem with this?
Because this is my assuming that it's gonna be him. I don't want any acknowledgement that this might happen. I want it to be a total shock that this person is back.
Okay,
and you only know it if you read the dirt sheets.
I agree that it would be fun if there were return surprises and debuts and stuff where there was no tease at all, where something just happened. I completely agree. But I have no problem with vignettes and teases that are murky as to who it is. I have bigger problems with kind of the way they did Penta, although that was for, Raw on Netflix and they probably wanted to make a big deal about it. I had a bigger problem with the other vignette we got Friday night for Rey Fenix, which not only showed off his mask and all of his tattoos, but by the end, the entirety of his body along with his name. And that's because he's debuting next week for some reason. Joe Tessitore on commentary not only called out Fenix, he was not shy about him being the brother of Penta and part of the Lucha Brothers. That's such a far cry from how WWE of old would have treated this, not wanting us to know their relationship until they ultimately became a team. What was most notable, though, is he's using his full name, Rey Fenix. Figured he would go by Fenix, similar to Penta, especially because there's Rey Mysterio. But cool. I know you will agree, Chris. Even with the blatant teases to this point, I hate that they just completely gave this one away as a debut. Next week's show is in Chicago. If there was any group of fans who did not need to be told about Fenix before his debut, it is Chicago wrestling fans. They would have sold it crazy on their own. Alas.
It is very weird that both of their Penta's debut announcement was made via the WWE shop or something like that. Generally, I'm okay with vignettes revealing who it is if they have never been in WWE, because there's a large crowd that won't know. And sometimes you should just know this person because they were big on the independents.
Okay.
That doesn't work with the WWE crowd today. So I'm okay with the general idea. I'm not okay with the way they're doing it. Especially the Penta one.
But these aren't really
it's really just
sorry, hold on. These teases for Penta and Fenix, they're not actually telling us anything. Like when Razor Ramon debuted in WWE and they did all those vignettes, they were giving you character and background. When he debuted, you knew exactly what that character was. These are just teasers where it's here's some cool graphics and visuals. So when they show up, you should be excited for them, but they're not actually teaching us anything about them. If they were teaching us about them, then I'd be more okay with it.
Correct. That's what they're not doing. They're doing here's a big name that if you know independent wrestling or AEW, then you know who they are. But if you don't know who they are, it doesn't mean anything to you.
Right.
Which
They
is
look
why
cool.
I don't like that.
Yeah.
My bigger concern is if somebody who formerly was in WWE is coming back to WWE, I never want any tease or promotion or thought of it. Yeah. That's the difference.
Yeah, fair enough. Now, quickly before we get out, because we have gone long today, I just wanted to go over the updated WrestleMania 41 card. These matches are all now official. The WWE Championship, Cody Rhodes versus John Cena, the main event of night 2. Roman Reigns, Seth Rollins, CM Punk, the main event of night 1. The Women's World Championship, Io Sky versus Bianca Belair, though we clearly expect Rhea Ripley to join as a triple threat. The World Heavyweight Championship, Gunther against Jey Uso. The WWE Women's Championship, Tiffany Stratton against Charlotte Flair. Randy Orton against Kevin Owens. Drew McIntyre against Damian Priest. Now that I think about it, I don't think that's actually official yet. AJ Styles versus Logan Paul. That is official. Here are the matches, Chris, I assume will also be on this card. Women's Tag Team Championship, Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez against Lyra Valkyria and Bayley. Intercontinental Championship, Braun Breaker, Penta, Finn Balor, Dominic Mysterio in a fatal 4-way. United States Championship, you and I slightly disagree. I think it's LA Knight, Jacob Fatu. You think it might be a 3-way or 4-way with Braun Strowman and or Solo Sikoa. And then here's a couple others. Naomi versus Jade Cargill. This is actually the one I want to talk about. I didn't believe initially this would be on WrestleMania. After this week, I strongly believe it will be on the card.
I don't know. It's how many matches did you list there? Like how many total do we know?
All that I named are 11 before this one.
And they're generally doing 14 to 15 with like a minute, like a
it's
minute
7 to
long
8.
match.
It's 7 to 8 per night.
Yeah. So there's room. There's definitely room for it.
I think you need to have 2 women's matches per night, and this should be one of them.
Yeah,
one of the
probably
4.
Probably makes sense.
And that's a minimum. I mean, there should be more women's matches, but 4 should be the minimum, 2 per night. WWE Tag Team Championship, maybe a 5-way ladder match, World Tag Team Championship, War Raiders, New Day. Both of those, they seemed like they were going to be at WrestleMania. Now I'm not so sure. If you added all of those together, that's 14 matches. We'd still be missing the Women's United States Championship, Chelsea Green, who should absolutely be on the show in one way or another. Lyra as the Women's Intercontinental Championship. She would be in a tag team title match, and there's a number of other notable names not on the card, Sami Zayn, Sheamus, et cetera, et cetera. So that is where this card stands right now. Anything that you want to say about this before we get out of here?
It's a good card on paper, really good card on paper. The nice thing about Triple H is that like we're back to the full timers for the most part, and not celebrities and stuff like that. Except for this year, we've had a lot of part timers around the 2 biggest matches. So, but overall, looks good. Also, you forgot 2 theme songs as well on the card.
Right, and 2 theme songs that they're gonna figure out, I guess, how they're. By the way, now that I'm thinking about it, dude, maybe one is the theme song for night 1 and the other is the theme song for night 2, but they haven't said that. Yeah.
There's also like 15 different official events around WrestleMania now. You've got not like After Dark. There's something that sounds better to me than going out clubbing in Vegas with a bunch of wrestling fans.
Yeah, immediately after the show, where like you'd have to rush to get there from the venue. It's so convoluted.
And everyone's wearing their John Cena shirts.
We're going to go over the entirety of the WrestleMania plan when it comes to what WWE is promoting, along with our plan for WrestleMania week here on the Getting Over Wrestling podcast. We'll probably do it next week on the show. I'm going to tell you guys straight up, the next 2 weeks are going to be insanely chaotic. Silver King is going to have to tape next week's show either from Savannah, Georgia or Augusta, Georgia. I'm not quite sure where yet. And then the week after that, obviously, is going to be the go home episode for WrestleMania. But we're going to have a loaded week, multiple shows, bonus episodes. We do it up big for WrestleMania. If you're a new listener and somehow this is your first episode of the show, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Most of you have been listening every single week. And if that's the case, please remember that here on the Getting Over Wrestling podcast,
it's all about Defy.
So head over to Apple Podcasts and Spotify, leave a 5-star rating on Apple, take a little extra time, leave a 5-star written review. If you do, we will read it live right here on the show. Don't forget,
I happen to love the number 5.
And I hope you do as well. $5 a month, $50 for the entire year. You can become an official Getting Overhead. Just visit buymeacoffee.com/gettingover. Sign up. You'll get bonus audio, the fastest 5 minutes in professional wrestling, instant reaction audio to every major show, and exclusive news analysis posts every week. Please support us financially. buymeacoffee.com/gettingover. Please also remember to subscribe to us on YouTube at Getting Overcast. Full audio of all of our shows, video clips from old interviews, and full video interviews for every new one that we have in 2025. And please follow us on social media at Getting Overcast on Twitter, at Getting Over on Blue Sky. Episode drops, news analysis highlights, all of that good stuff. You can also send in questions and comments for the show, and we will do our best to read them on the air. Huge next couple of weeks coming up for you Getting Overheads. We have our NXT and AEW show coming up on Thursday, and we'll be back next Tuesday, same bat time, same bat channel, talking all things WWE. For Vintage Chris Vanini, this is the Silver King Adam Silverstein signing off and leaving you with just 3 final words. Bye for now.